I am Maggie Liu. The underlying structure of this story is a game between two men, and the female lead Xie Yaosheng is the target of this game. Pei Yanzhou prices her as a tool. She can use the abacus, write policy essays, and sort out messy accounts. But she can't be brought to the table, because the presentable parts he took and gave to Lady Shen. Yin Heng prices her as a partner. Your skills are your skills, no need to put someone else's name on them. From a tool to a partner, this switch in the pricing system is Xie Yaosheng's true turnaround. Now let's see how this game is played. Pei Yanzhou made an impassioned speech in the royal court, yielding the great merit of controlling the locust plague, and begged to marry his widowed sister-in-law. His Majesty the Emperor was greatly pleased, granted, a righteous and honorable gentleman. I thought I was going to be kicked out of the house. The next sentence, Prince Jing's memorial requesting to marry Lady Xi. I have suppressed for 3 years, and today it is also granted. Pei Yanzhou's legs went weak. I simply passed out. When I woke up, Prince Jing was sitting by my bed peeling grapes. In the Golden Luan Hall, civil and military officials lined up on both sides. Ambergris was burning in the hall, and blue smoke curled up from the holes of the Boschon censer, gathering into a thin mist beneath the caisson ceiling carved with dragons and painted with phoenixes. I knelt on the cold golden bricks, my kneecaps aching from the hard surface. The golden bricks weren't made of gold. They were specially made filtered clay bricks from Suzhou. Striking them produced a metallic sound, and kneeling on them in winter, the chill seeped straight from my knees right into my bones. The hem of my skirt spread out on the brick surface, like a withered flower. Pei Yanzhou stood 3 steps ahead of me. His back was perfectly straight, and his scarlet official robe made his face look as flawless as jade. Embroidered on the hem of his robe in silver thread was a silver pheasant rank badge, the mark of a 5th rank civil official. He was just promoted to compiler in the Hanlin Academy 3 months ago, and I was the one who ironed this very official robe for him. He spoke. I, your subject Pei Yanzhou, boldly report to your majesty. His voice was steady, carrying a solemnity as if facing death without flinching. Listening from behind, I remembered how he had sat alone in the study all night last night. When leaving the house this morning, he took a look at me, a look filled with guilt, resolve, and a hint of evasion that I couldn't quite put my finger on. At the time, I thought it was about court matters, so I didn't think much of it. Now I know. I dare not take sole credit for controlling the locusts. In truth, it was my sister-in-law, Lady Shen, who studied agricultural books day and night to find the method to eradicate them. I merely reported it on her behalf. The entire court was in an uproar. It was like a ladle of cold water poured into boiling oil, crackling and popping explosively. The old censor of the censorate jerked his head around, his reading glasses almost slipping off the bridge of his nose. The tablet in the Minister of Revenue's hands wobbled. Even the brush-holding eunuch standing by the dragon throne opened his mouth slightly. I knelt in the back, my eyelids twitching. What, Lady Shen? His sister-in-law. That widowed sister-in-law who acts passive-aggressively towards me all day long and cries about her bitter fate. At the drop of a hat, she can't even tell the difference between leeks and wheat seedlings. Once, she even cut a handful of wheat seedlings thinking they were leeks, saying she was going to make dumplings, and it was the old women in the kitchen who finally recognized it. Her studying agricultural books. She can't even write out the title Qi Min Yao Shu. The corner of my mouth twitched, but I held it in. Pei Yanzhou continued, his voice louder than before, as if trying to embolden himself. This subject's older brother passed away early, and my sister-in-law has guarded an empty room alone for 3 years. This subject feels guilty in his heart. For 3 years, my sister-in-law has worked hard without complaint in the Pei family, managing the household and serving our mother-in-law, never uttering a word of grievance. This subject is bold today, and begs your majesty to show mercy, allowing this subject to divorce his legal wife, Lady Xi, and marry his widowed sister-in-law, Lady Shen, as his wife. As soon as these words came out, the main hall went quiet for a moment. It was a kind of quiet as if the pause button had been pressed. Everyone froze in place, their expressions solidifying on their faces. Then it exploded. It exploded even worse than before. The old men of the censorate were shaking so much their beards trembled, like they were having a collective epileptic fit. The Vice Minister of Rights, standing third to my left, suddenly spun around, his official robe whipping out in an arc that almost hit the director of the Ministry of Works next to him in the face. People were cursing under their breath, gasping in shock and whispering among themselves. Preposterous. A brother marrying his sister-in-law. What kind of decency is this? Has Pei Yanzhou gone mad? Isn't his wife Lady Shi right here in the hall? Quiet. The person on the dragon throne raised a hand. That hand just casually pressed down, and the uproar filling the hall was pushed down with it, like ripples being quickly sucked away after a boulder smashes into a lake. Once it quieted down, His Majesty the Emperor laughed. That kind of laugh, how should I put it, was like he'd just reached the best part of a play. The corners of his mouth tipped up, his eyes narrowed, and his fingers gently tapped out a beat on the armrest of the dragon throne. He wasn't angry, he was enjoying it, my dear Minister Pei. His Majesty the Emperor's voice held a hint of unconcealed amusement. You uphold loyalty for your brother and sister-in-law, not hesitating to give up major credit. And you are even willing to offer yourself in marriage to give your widowed sister-in-law a home, trading your credit for dealing with the locust plague for the grace to divorce your wife and marry someone else. Are you really willing to make this trade? I, Pei Yanzhou's voice choked up a bit. I am. His Majesty the Emperor stood up, with a swish of his dragon robe. That bright yellow dragon robe flashed with golden light under the candlelight, and the 9-5 clawed golden dragons embroidered on it seemed to swim with his movements. Good, truly a gentleman of benevolence and righteousness. I grant it. Pass down my decree. Pei Yanzhou has merit in controlling the locusts. Yet he does not claim credit and act arrogantly, but instead defers the merit to his sister-in-law, and is even willing to pledge himself in marriage to support the widowed, truly serving as a model of benevolence and righteousness for the world. I specially bestow marriage upon Pei Yanzhou and his widowed sister-in-law Lady Shen, to be completed on a chosen, auspicious day. Pei Yanzhou knelt down to give thanks, his forehead touching the ground with a muffled thump. He knelt so fiercely that his knees smashed onto the gold bricks. It sounded painful just hearing it. This subject bows in gratitude for the divine grace. Long live your Majesty, long live, long live. I knelt behind him, my brain buzzing. That buzzing sound was like the cicadas outside the window on a summer afternoon, pouring in overwhelmingly and drowning out all my thoughts. It was granted. He yielded the credit for controlling the locusts. He is going to divorce me and marry his sister-in-law. Then what about me? I am his legally wedded wife. I, Shi Yaosheng, the eldest legitimate daughter of the Shai family, entered the Pei family's door 3 years ago with my father calling the shots, complete with the 3 letters, 6 etiquettes, and an 8-bearer bridal sedan chair on our wedding day. He lifted my veil and said to me, Yaosheng, I will treat you well for the rest of my life. Less than 3 years later, in the imperial court, right in front of over 100 people, he said, this subject wishes to divorce his wife. Before I even had time to think about what to do next, whether to cry, to make a scene, or to silently back down, His Majesty the Emperor spoke again. Speaking of which, His Majesty the Emperor picked up a memorial from the dragon desk. The cover of that memorial had already yellowed, and the edges were frayed, clearly having been flipped through many times. He casually flipped through it, the motion as casual as flipping through a storybook he was tired of reading. That brat Prince Jing submitted a memorial 3 years ago, asking to marry Pei Yanzhou's wife, Lady Shi. I found it absurd at the time, so I shelved it for 3 years without approving it. Do you know why it was absurd? Because Lady Xia had just married into the Pei family at the time Prince Jing submitted the memorial, 3 months before Lady Xi even got married. I what? Pei Yanzhou suddenly raised his head. His neck looked as if it had been jerked by an invisible rope, his head snapping upwards so hard the back of his head almost hit his own back, his face visibly turned white under the candlelight, first flushing red, then fading to pink, then fading to white, and finally turning into a deadly ashen pale. The civil and military officials of the whole court turned their heads in unison to look at the man in the corner who had been resting with his eyes closed. The southwest corner of the Golden Luan Hall, the very last spot in the line of military officials. Prince Jing Yin Heng leaned against a pillar, arms crossed over his chest, his head tilted slightly, eyes closed, breathing as evenly as if he were taking an afternoon nap in his own bed at home. He was the only one not wearing court attire, dressed in a dark brocade robe, waist bound by a black jade belt. He looked completely out of place among the crowd of scarlet official robes. The uproar in the hall just now, the angry reprimands of the censors, and the laughter of His Majesty the Emperor seemed to have nothing to do with him. His Majesty the Emperor called him, but he didn't move. The military official next to him nudged him with an elbow, and he still didn't move. Nudged him again. He opened his eyes. Those phoenix eyes opened slowly, as if just waking up from a good dream. His eyes still carried a thin layer of mist, his pupils showing a light brown, almost like amber under the candlelight. He yawned, covering his mouth with the back of his hand, and mumbled an M, but mum was dragged out long, the end note tilting up, carrying a natural sort of casualness, as if he wasn't listening to politics in the Golden Luan Hall. But being woken up by his wife on his own heated brick bed at home, His Majesty the Emperor slapped the memorial in his hand onto the dragon desk. With a smack, it was even louder than a judge's gavel. Now that my dear subject Pei wants to divorce his wife and marry another, Lady Shi is a free woman. Prince Jing's memorial. I also approve it today. The main hall was dead silent. That kind of quiet wasn't just quiet, it was dead silent. Even the sound of breathing stopped. The ambergris in the Boshan censer was still burning, the green smoke still drifting up, but among the over 100 people in the hall, not a single one made a sound. The old men from the censorate who were just shaking their beards in anger now had their mouths open wide enough to stuff an egg in, their beards no longer shaking, as if frozen. Pei Yanzhou's face turned white in that instant, not the kind of pale from being startled, but a ghastly white seeping out from the depths of his soul, as if all the blood in his body had been drained out in an instant, leaving only skin over bones. My vision went black. That blackness spread from the edges of my vision to the center like a drop of ink dripping into water, rapidly blossoming. The last scene I saw was that glittering golden coiled dragon on the caisson ceiling above my head, its eyes glaring round, seemingly looking at me. Then that dragon got blurrier and blurrier, further and further away, finally turning into a spot of golden light, disappearing into a patch of darkness. I fell straight back. The last thought before passing out was Prince Jing, asking to marry me. 3 years ago, had I ever even spoken to him? I don't even remember what he looks like. I didn't even know what his name was. I only found out later that Pei Yanzhou's older brother died of illness in the autumn 3 years ago, tuberculosis. Dragged on for half a year, he wasted away to a bag of bones, and wasn't even 30 when he passed. After his brother died, Madame Shen became a widowed sister-in-law, living with his brother's memorial tablet in the west courtyard of the Pei family, staying there for 3 years. And Prince Jing's memorial requesting to marry me was submitted in the spring 3 years ago, just a few days after the Lantern Festival. A whole spring earlier than when I married Pei Yanzhou, the light at the palace doors darkened for a moment. A person walked in against the light, the corners of his robe catching the wind. In my days I smelled a faint scent of pine wood. Not ambergris, not sandalwood, but a clear, slightly cool pine scent. Then a pair of hands scooped me up from the ground. Those hands were very steady, one supporting the back of my neck, the other passing under the backs of my knees, effortlessly scooping me up into a bridal carry. Imperial brother, that lazy voice sounded above my head. I will take her back first. She fainted. I have waited for 3 years, and I don't want to wait for another stick of incense. His Majesty the Emperor seemed to be laughing, or maybe not. I couldn't tell anymore. I was woken up by a sweet scent of grapes. The scent was very faint, not the overwhelming intensity of floral fragrances that hits your face, but drifting into my nose wisp by wisp sweet, with a tiny, imperceptible hint of tartness like the clear sweetness of freshly peeled fruit pulp. Opening my eyes, the first thing I saw was a bright yellow bed canopy. The color was too bright, stinging my eyes and making me squint. Right in the middle of the canopy was an embroidered 5-clawed dragon, its head raised, eyes wide open, whiskers flying, its body coiling among the cloud patterns, one claw grasping a luminous pearl. I've seen this pattern before in the illustrations of the palace books. A 5-clawed golden dragon. Only the emperor and princes can use it. I sat up with a whoosh. I got up too fast, my forehead almost hitting the carved crossbeam on the bed frame. My temples throbbing wildly. A long, fair hand was held out in front of me. That hand was really pretty. The joints were distinct but not rough. The knuckles slightly raised, and you could faintly see the blue veins under the skin. The fingertips were pinching a peeled grape. The flesh crystal clear, giving off a pale green glow under the sunlight filtering through the canopy like a piece of peeled jade. Awake. The voice was deep, with a bit of a lazy drawl at the end, sounding like they just woke up and hadn't fully cleared their throat yet. I followed that hand and looked up. First I saw a dark jade wrist guard on the wrist, then the cuff of a black brocade robe, embroidered with flowing cloud patterns in dark gold thread. Further up was a slightly open collar, collarbones faintly visible. Further up a face, sword-like eyebrows slanting into the temples, the ends of the brows tilting slightly upwards. A high-bridged nose, the line from the bridge to the tip as sharp as if carved by a knife. Thin lips pressed slightly together, the corners of the mouth carrying a barely there curve. The most deadly was that pair of eyes, long and narrow phoenix eyes, the outer corners tilting upwards, carrying 3 parts devilishness and 7 parts nobility, the pupils showing a light amber brown in the light, looking at me with a half-smile. Prince Jing Yin Heng. He was sitting right by my bed, not sitting properly on a stool, but sitting sideways on the edge of the bed, one leg bent and stepping on the footstool, the other leg crossed over it. His posture so relaxed it was as if he was sitting in his own backyard admiring the flowers, peeling grapes. With a light squeeze of his right thumb and index finger, the grape skin split open with a slit, and then the 2 fingers worked together to twist and push, and the whole grape flesh slid out of the skin, so perfectly intact without even a bit of damage. He placed the peeled grapes in a white porcelain saucer on his left side, where 7 or 8 were already piled up. I opened my mouth. You, eat first. He stuffed that grape in his hand into my mouth. He moved incredibly fast before I could even react. The tip of my tongue had already touched the cold fruit flesh. His aim was spot on, dead center, stuffing it right into my open mouth. It was sweet, not that sickeningly sweet kind, but a fresh and crisp sweetness, the kind of sweetness unique to grapes with a tiny, barely noticeable hint of tartness. The flesh was plump and juicy, and the juice exploded in my mouth the moment I bit down. I chewed mechanically a couple of times and swallowed, then slapped his hand away. I slapped pretty hard, with a crisp smack, and a faint red mark immediately appeared on the back of his hand. He didn't dodge. Where is this? Prince Jing's manner. He picked up another grape and took his time peeling it. There was an indescribable unhurriedness to his movements, not deliberately slow, but a relaxed vibe coming from his very bones, as if even the sky falling couldn't delay him from peeling this grape. You passed out in the Golden Luan Hall, so my imperial brother had me bring you back. He said you definitely wouldn't be able to go back to the Pei family anymore, and we couldn't just dump an unconscious woman on the street. I took a deep breath. All I breathed in was grape-flavored air, faintly sweet, and just as baffling as the master of this manor, Your Highness. Is there some misunderstanding? You and I don't seem to know each other very well. I don't even remember where I've seen you before. There is no misunderstanding. He put the peeled grape into the dish and picked up the next one. You are not familiar with me. Then why, but I am familiar with you, he interrupted me, his tone so flat it was like stating a universally known fact. Me? He finally looked up at me. Those long, narrow phoenix eyes held a hint of a smile. And something else, not teasing, not joking, but a very serious certainty that seemed to have settled after being confirmed many times. He was looking at me, but not at my face. He was looking at Temdi Mai, as if confirming, yes, it is her. 3 years ago, Shangyan Lantern Festival, Duke Avenue, next to the 3rd stall south of Dongshiku. He said it extremely precisely, so precisely that it made one wonder if he had memorized it from a notebook. You stepped on my foot. I tried desperately to recall. 3 years ago, Shangyuan Lantern Festival. I definitely went out that night, less than 3 months after marrying into the Pei family. Pei Yanzhou said he would take me to see the lanterns. But right before we left, he was called away by Mrs. Shen, who said her chest hurt. Pei Yanzhou went to keep her company. I went alone out of spite, wandered around Duke Avenue all night, bought a rabbit lantern, drank 2 pots of osmanthus wine, and got dizzy drunk, crowded with people. I think I really did step on someone. And then you said, Yin Heng put down the grapes, cleared his throat, and imitated a drunken female voice. Oops, sorry, big feet, couldn't break in time. My face started to burn. That heat shot up from the base of my neck, like someone had lit a pan of charcoal right under my chin. At that moment, I thought. He pushed the plate in front of me. The grapes on it piled up into a small mountain. This girl is interesting. Just because I stepped on your foot. After stepping on me, you even looked down at my boots. He stretched out his left foot, pointing the toe of his boot up, and said, "Thank goodness, it didn't get dirty. These boots must be pretty expensive, huh?" Then you pulled a handkerchief out of your sleeve, squatted down, and wiped my shoe for me. He paused and added, "A goose-yellow handkerchief, with a crookedly embroidered rabbit on it. I want to die. I really want to die. I remember now. I drank 2 pots of osmanthus wine that day, feeling all dizzy, and I really did do those things. I embroidered that handkerchief myself, and it was extremely ugly. I originally meant to give it to Pei Yanzhou, but I never did. So I just kept stuffing it in my sleeve to use as a rag for my hands. That day I wiped a strange man's shoe, and after wiping it I realized the handkerchief was gone, and even thought it had been blown away by the wind. Later, I looked up who you were." Yin Heng's tone was as flat as if he were saying the weather is nice today. The legitimate daughter of the Shi family, 17 years old, just married into the Pei family 3 months ago. Your dad is the Chancellor of the National Directorate, and your mum is the daughter of the Jiangnan Textile Commissioner's family. You've been proficient in arithmetic since childhood, able to use the abacus at 9 and calculate land taxes at 12. Ever since old Master Pei passed away a few years ago, the Pei family's accounts have been a total mess. You are the one who cleared the accounts up after marrying in. He knows me even better than Pei Yanzhou does." After checking, he picked up the grapes again. "The very next day, I submitted a memorial." I glared at him. "He was peeling grapes, Your Highness." I spoke with difficulty, my throat as dry as if I hadn't drank water for 3 days. "Is there something wrong with your brain? When you submitted the memorial, I was already married. You asked to marry a married woman." He laughed. Not that kind of reserved laugh, not the aristocratic fake laugh where the corners of the mouth turn up way, and that is it. He was truly amused, the corners of his eyes crinkling, revealing 2 not-so-obvious canine teeth, and his Adam's apple bobbed up and down. The laughter was deep and thick like the lowest note of a cello. After laughing, he covered his mouth with the back of his hand, his shoulders still shaking. Probably my royal brother scolded me the exact same way back then. He said that the civil and military officials of the entire court submit memorials either asking for money or grain, and only his own younger brother submitted a memorial asking for a married woman. He asked if my brain had been kicked by a donkey. "Then why did you still submit it?" Handed it in. He popped the grape into his mouth, chewed twice, and swallowed it. "I, Yin Heng, don't have much in this life, but I do have plenty of patience. I figured it out. Within 3 years, Pei Yanzhou would either divorce you or become a widower. Sure enough, in the 3rd year, he divorced you. 2 months earlier than I estimated." I looked at him, looked at his face that was so handsome, it didn't seem real, looked at the I finally got what I was waiting for, certainty in his amber eyes. Suddenly, I felt a chill down my spine. This man had waited for me for 3 years. Not 3 years of lovesick waiting, but 3 years of I figured you'd get a divorce. He figured out 3 years ago that Pei Yanzhou would divorce me. How did he figure it out? Based on what? Don't look at me like that. He unhurriedly wiped the grape juice off his fingers. I am no fortune teller. I just looked into the sky. Pei Yanzhou, after his older brother died, his widowed sister-in-law Shen kept living in the Pei family. A young, beautiful, childless, widowed sister-in-law with an awkward status, living under the same roof as a soft-hearted, easily swayed younger brother-in-law. What kind of good outcome do you think could come from that? I couldn't speak. And besides, he looked up at me, the smile suddenly vanishing from those phoenix eyes. You are too capable, Shi Yaosheng. Men aren't afraid of a pretty wife, nor a fierce wife, but they are afraid of a wife who is more capable than them. You calculate on the abacus faster than he reads memorials. The policy essays you write are more organized than his articles, and the locus control strategies you helped him put together are more detailed than those of the old scholars in the Ministry of Works. The more capable you are, the more he fears you. So afraid that he'd rather push the credit onto a widowed sister-in-law who knows absolutely nothing than dare let people know the truly formidable one is his legal wife. So you knew long ago that he would divorce me. Not that long ago, he thought for a moment, probably half a year after you married into the Pei family. I had someone gather the Pei family's purchasing accounts and the drafts of the locus control strategy. The drafts had 2 handwriting styles. The main writer was you, and the notes and edits were his. I thought right then, it is over. This girl is too formidable. Her man won't be able to tolerate her sooner or later. He could even get his hands on the Pei family's purchasing accounts. When exactly, I struggled to put the words together, did you start the night of the Lantern Festival? He put the last peeled grape into the plate. The plate was already piled high, and the one on the very top was wobbling, ready to roll off at any moment. You crouched down on Duke Avenue to wipe my shoes, and I looked down at the top of your head. There was a silk flower pinned in your hair bun, also goose yellow. It was crooked, about to fall off. I wanted to fix the flower for you right then, but you stood up and walked away. The flower fell on the ground, and I picked it up. He reached into his robe, took something out, and placed it next to the plate. It was a silk flower, goose yellow, the edges already worn fuzzy, and the color had faded to a pale off-white, but you could tell it had once been very carefully preserved. I opened my mouth looking at him, looking at that faded silk flower by his hand. He said, "Then I went to find out who you were, found out you were Pei Yanzhou's wife." He pushed the plate toward me a little, so I waited for you to split up with him. You were so sure he would divorce me. Not sure. That is why I submitted the petition, just to get in line first. He stood up and stretched, a sliver of narrow waist showing beneath his black brocade robe. Just in case you really became free one day, my royal brother might remember that petition and approve it in passing. See, didn't he just approve it today? He actually made a marriage sound as simple as lining up at the yamen to collect rice. Suddenly, a rush of hurried footsteps came from outside the door, the sound of boot soles jogging on the bluestone slabs, getting closer from a distance and stopping abruptly at the door. "Your Highness, Lord Pei is outside the manor gates asking for an audience. He says the person granted to him in marriage by His Majesty the Emperor has run into a bit of a situation, and he wants to see Miss Qi." Yin Heng paused, his hands that were peeling grapes. His fingers stopped in mid-air, the fingertips still stained with grape juice sparkling in the sunlight. He tilted his head to look at me and raised an eyebrow. "You want to see him?" I thought about Pei Yanzhou's righteous face in the royal court. I thought about the matter-of-fact tone he used when he said, "I want to divorce my wife," and his unflinching candor when he pushed the credit onto Lady Shen. "I won't see him. Tell him to leave." Yin Heng's lips curled up. The curve was really nice, carrying a kind of smugness of having guessed it all along. He popped the grape in his hand into his own mouth, chewed it, swallowed, stood up and walked to the door, saying to the butler outside, "Simone, go tell Lord Pei his ex-wife is eating grapes and doesn't have time." It was quiet outside the door for a moment. Then came Pei Yanzhou's suppressed voice. Squeezed out from between his teeth, even through the heavy courtyard walls, you could hear the anger and disbelief in his voice. "Shi Yaosheng, come out, let's talk. I'll just say a few words. I'll leave on my own once I am done." Yin Heng didn't move. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, tilted his head and glanced outside. Then he turned back to look at me, a questioning look in his eyes. I shook my head. He turned and walked out of the room, through the half-open window lattice. I saw his dark silhouette cross the corridor and walk to the mansion's entrance. He didn't open the doors, just stood inside. And separated by those heavy vermilion doors, his voice wasn't loud, but it carried out clearly. "Lord Pei, you want to marry your sister-in-law, and this prince didn't stop you. This prince wants to marry your ex-wife, so don't you stop me either." He paused, his tone shifting from lazy to slightly chilly. "We are all decent people, let's not make things ugly." It was silent outside for a very, very long time. So long that I thought Pei Yanzhou had already left. Then came his voice, teeth gnashing, forced out from the depths of his throat, as if suppressing some emotion about to burst its dam. Every single word trembling. Yin Heng. She belongs to my Pei family. She has been married into my Pei family for 3 years. She is the wife of me, Pei Yanzhou. Even if His Majesty granted the divorce, she still hasn't entered the doors of your Prince Jing's mansion. For you to detain her right now, you right. Yin Heng closed the main doors, turned around and walked back. I looked at him, then looked at the grape in his hand. Suddenly I smiled. I even found that smile a bit surprising myself. The corners of my mouth felt a bit stiff as they pulled up, as if it had been too long since I last used this expression. He personally said in court that he wanted to divorce me. In front of His Majesty the Emperor, all the civil and military officials heard it. Right, divorced. Yin Heng finished peeling the grape and placed it at the very top of the dish. That exact one, perfectly pinning down a grape that was about to roll off. So now you are a free woman. Being a free woman means you can go anywhere and you can marry anyone. He pushed the dish back in front of me. For example, me. I looked at his handsome face and the cleanly peeled grape in his hand. Then I looked at the faded goose yellow silk flower on the table. Suddenly I felt that passing out wasn't entirely a bad thing. At least when I woke up, there was someone sitting by the bed peeling grapes for me. And the last time I woke up with someone by my bed was the morning after my wedding. Pei Yanzhou said he was going to keep Lady Shen company for breakfast, and told me to eat by myself. Life at Prince Jing's estate is completely different from what I imagined. Before I got here, I thought it'd be a sprawling compound with strict rules and hordes of concubines after all. Yin Heng is the late Emperor's youngest son, the full brother of His Majesty the Emperor, and a bona fide prince. A prince's estate should at least have a sea of servants, rows of secondary and lesser concubines and favoured mistresses leaning against the corridors swatting butterflies with round fans. But after 3 days here, aside from the guards and the butler, I haven't seen a single young maid. The ones bustling about the estate are all burly, thick-waisted older women with booming voices sweeping the courtyard so hard sparks could fly from their brooms. The head chef in the kitchen is an old man in his 60s, supposedly a retired army cook from the northern frontier. He excels at cooking massive batches of food, serving up at least 4 meat dishes per meal and as much rice as you can eat. His Highness skipped court again today. On the 3rd morning, I walked into the flower hall carrying a bowl of red date and millet porridge. The porridge was cooked by Old Man Zhao from the kitchen. The millet was simmered until its natural oils came out. The red dates were pitted, and it tasted pleasantly sweet. Yin Heng was lounging on the daybed. The daybed was a bit short, so he couldn't straighten his legs. One leg rested on the armrest, dangling back and forth, and the other foot stepped on the Persian rug on the floor. The rug was woven with a Western region's grape pattern, the purplish red grape clusters half hidden among the green leaves, looking just like the real thing. He held a storybook in his hand, the cover reading Legend of the Marvelous Swordsman of the Four Seas, and was completely engrossed in it. Yeah, playing sick. He didn't even look up as he turned a page, dabbing a bit of spit on his finger to rub the pages apart. The movement was smooth and fluid, clearly a skill honed from years of playing sick to read leisure books. How many times have you played sick this month? The 6th time. He lowered the storybook a bit, revealing his eyes. Those phoenix eyes were completely unbothered, showing absolutely no embarrassment of being exposed, instead carrying a sort of honesty that said, I can't even be bothered to make up a new excuse. The Imperial Doctor doesn't care. The Imperial Doctor is my uncle on my mum's side. He turned a page of the book and suddenly looked up at me. Those phoenix eyes swept over the top of the storybook, his gaze pausing on me for a second. Today I was wearing a light blue everyday outfit, sent over by the estate steward. The material was top-notch, said to be newly arrived cloud brocade from Songjiang. It fit perfectly like it was custom-made. Where do you want to go today if you are feeling cooped up? I'll have someone get the carriage ready. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't even have the face to go out anymore. During my 3 years in the Pei family, every time I went out, someone would call me young Madam Pei. Now the whole capital city knows that Pei Yanzhou divorced me to marry his widowed sister-in-law. If I walk on the street, peddlers will probably throw rotten cabbage leaves at me for free. Then just stay at home. He patted the spot next to him on the chaise longue. The chaise longue wasn't wide to begin with, and him lounging on it alone took up the whole thing. He pulled back his leg that was resting on the armrest, making a space about 2 palms wide. "Come sit." I didn't move. I stood in the middle of the flower hall, holding the congee in my hands. "Your Highness, I have a question." "Speak." He put down the storybook. "Are you really going to marry me just because I stepped on your foot? A handkerchief, a silk flower, and a cup of osmanthus wine. Is that worth you waiting for 3 years?" He closed the book and pressed it against his chest, looking at me seriously. The rare kind of serious, not his usual lazy, half-smiling look, but truly serious. The smile in his eyes faded, and the amber color of his pupils deepened, like a cup of tea on its second steep, the color settling in. Not entirely. Stepping on my foot was just the beginning. Then what else is there? After the Lantern Festival, I had someone look into you. He sat up, leaning his back against the armrest of the chaise, one leg bent with his foot on the edge, his other hand resting on his knee. The legitimate daughter of the Shi family, smart since childhood and a master at math. Your dad said that when you were 9, a new math master came to the Imperial College and gave out a land tax calculation problem. All the students tried to calculate it for 4 hours without figuring it out, but it took you less than the time it takes an incense stick to burn. Your dad cried in his study all night, not out of joy, but out of pity. A pity that you aren't a man and can't take the Imperial exams to become an official. I froze. My dad never told me about this. I only remember that the problem was indeed very simple. A trapezoidal field with 2 irregular water canals added to it. You just had to deduct the area of the canals. I thought everyone had figured it out. After you married into the Pei family, he continued, the Pei family had a complete mess of accounts left behind by your father-in-law. Old Master Pei owed several outside debts before he died. The man passed away, but the debts didn't, and creditors came knocking every year. It was you who took an abacus and calculated them item by item. Discovering that the interest on 3,000 taels was calculated incorrectly, you sat in Pei Yanzhou's study for 7 whole days, entirely rebuilding the accounts for the farm estate's income and expenses over the past 3 years. In the end, not only did the Pei family pay off all the debts, but they even had a surplus of 600 taels. He even knew about this. The drafts for the locus control strategy, you have 2 manuscripts kept in Pei Yanzhou's study, a rough draft and a final draft. Your notes are on the rough draft. You wrote a few lines saying locusts mostly lay eggs where dry fields meet riverbanks, and suggested switching to crops that locusts hate within 5 jang of the river. This plan is exactly the same as what those old agricultural officials in the Ministry of Works had in mind, but they argued about it for 3 years in the ministry without deciding on anything, while you finished it all by yourself in the Pei family study in just a dozen days or so. I opened my mouth, unable to speak. The credit for the locus control was yours to begin with. He looked into my eyes, his tone as flat as if he were talking about the weather. He just copied what you had written and signed his own name. Pei Yanzhou is a compiler in the Hanlin Academy. As long as the strategy you wrote had his name on it, the credit was his. If the Imperial Court investigated thoroughly, thankfully, they didn't, they would find that the handwriting on the original manuscript is yours. Shi Yaosheng, not Lady Shen. He pushed the credit onto Lady Shen in court, not because he is stupid, nor because he really thought Lady Shen knew how to control locusts. He paused, his voice dropping lower. It is because he would rather let another woman take the credit for nothing than let people know you are the one with the real skills. He wasn't afraid of having his credit stolen, he was afraid of you outshining him. My hand holding the porridge bowl began to tremble. The porridge wasn't hot anymore, and the sides of the bowl only held a tiny bit of lingering warmth, but my fingers were freezing, my knuckles turning white from my tight grip. The surface of the porridge rippled slightly in the bowl, chunks of red dates bobbing up and down in the rice broth. He didn't want the credit, not because he was giving it up to his sister-in-law, but because he knew that if the Imperial Court dug deep, they'd find out the one who really did the work was you. He was afraid your merits would outshine the master, not outshining someone else's master, but outshining him as the master of the house. You shine too brightly, dazzling him so much he can't even open his eyes. I couldn't speak. It felt like a wad of cotton was stuffed in my throat. Yin Heng reached out and held my wrist. His hand was large, dry, and warm, with thin calluses on the webbing between his thumb and index finger worn there from drawing a bow. He wrapped my wrist in his palm. his thumb gently pressing on my pulse. The pressure wasn't heavy, but it was steady, steady as an anchor, holding me firmly in place against a current that was about to wash me away. The pad of his finger pressed against the rapidly throbbing vein on the inside of my wrist, and I felt the warmth from his fingertips passing over to me bit by bit. "Xi Yaosheng," he said, "not Miss Xi, not County Princess Huian, but Xi Yaosheng, my full name, coming out of his mouth, carried a solemn weight to it like he was reading an imperial edict or a promise. You don't have to slave away for someone else's benefit anymore. In Prince Jing's manner, the credit for everything you do is your own. When you write out a strategy, it will bear your name. The accounts you calculate on the abacus are your accounts. If you want to attend court, just tell my imperial brother. If you want to write policy essays, just write them. No one will dare to take your hard work and claim it as their own, including me." I looked up at him. His eyes were serious, without a hint of joking. Those amber phoenix eyes reflected my image, small and clear, like a butterfly sealed in amber. My nose stung, and I turned my head away. Something was welling up in my eyes. I blinked hard, refusing to let it fall. The bowl of porridge wobbled in my hand. Almost spilling, he didn't press the matter, nor did he hand me a handkerchief, which I was very grateful for. He knew I hated it most when others saw me cry. He just let go, picked up the storybook again, turned a page and said in a casual, chatting tone, "The kitchen made osmanthus cakes today. Old man Lai preserved the sugared osmanthus last autumn, preserved it for exactly half a year, and just opened the jar this morning. Have a taste. If it is not good, I'll have him remake it. He has got nothing better to do anyway." I sniffled, my voice a bit muffled. "Are there no other women in your estate? Secondary consorts, concubines, bedmaids, not a single one? None?" He turned a page of his book, his tone flat. "Not a single one." I didn't believe it. He is a prince. The inner palace should have granted him marriages at least twice before, and there should be at least a dozen servant girls attending him. Too annoying. He turned another page, licking his finger a bit to peel the pages apart. "Raising flowers is less of a headache than keeping concubines. Flowers don't talk, don't get jealous, and don't cause me trouble. Water them and they bloom, forget to water them and they wilt, water them again when wilted and they still live, better than women." "Then how many flowers do you keep?" I couldn't help but take a look outside the flower hall. The courtyard was indeed full of flowers, a row of celadon pots along the base of the wall, 2 rows of terracotta vats under the stone steps, and bamboo flower baskets hanging on the corridor railings. Brightly coloured in purples and reds, there were all sorts of varieties, many of which I couldn't even name. 372 pots. He didn't even look up, continuing to flip through the storybook, not counting that old locust tree in the courtyard. I looked at the yard outside the flower hall, completely covered in brilliant purples and reds. There was a pot of some unknown flower in full bloom, its petals deep purple with a white edge. Gently nodding its head in the wind, next to the pot stood a small wooden sign with the flower's name and watering frequency written on it with a brush purple ribbon golden seal. Water once every 3 days, avoid direct sunlight. Good grief, turns out he put all the energy for raising concubines into raising flowers. 372 pots. Every single one has a name tag. This takes more effort than keeping a concubine, right, Your Highness? Yeah. You checked up on me so many times, you even knew how much money the Pei family owed, and how much the interest was miscalculated. Why didn't you just tell me straight up 3 years ago? Why wait?" His hand paused while turning the page. His fingers were pinched between the pages, hanging in mid-air. After a moment of silence, he put the storybook down and turned to look at me. Those phoenix eyes had no smile, no laziness, just a kind of seriousness that is hard to describe. Like a guy who is never serious suddenly getting serious, it is actually more unnerving than someone who is always serious. 3 years ago, you had just married into the Pei family. If I went to look for you then and told you your man will divorce you sooner or later, how about you follow me, would you believe it? I wouldn't. I'd treat him like a lunatic. I'd even think he was a lecher with an ulterior motive, deliberately trying to drive a wedge between us as husband and wife. You wouldn't. He answered for me, his tone flat, without a trace of emotion. You are someone who is stubborn to a fault. Once you married in with the 3 letters and 6 rights, you would earnestly be the daughter-in-law of the Pei family. Even if Pei Yanzhou gave you the cold shoulder, Even if Mrs. Shen made things difficult for you at every turn, even if you exhausted all your heart and soul, you would still feel that it was the path you chose yourself, and you'd finish walking it even on your knees. He closed the storybook and rested it on his lap. The cover of that legend of the marvelous swordsman of the four seas was already worn and fraying, its corners curled up, clearly having been flipped through by him countless times. So I didn't go looking for you. I submitted a memorial and left it with my royal brother. I figured if you were doing well in the Pei family, that memorial would just be a piece of scrap paper. If you weren't doing well in the Pei family, you would leave eventually. When that day comes, the memorial is there, and I am here. When that day comes, the memorial is there, and I am here. 7 words, he said them so lightly, like casually mentioning that the kitchen made osmanthus cakes today. But I knew these weren't light words. 3 years ago, when he submitted the memorial, the entire court called him ridiculous, and his royal brother scolded him, saying his head had been kicked by a donkey. He submitted the memorial and let it sit for 3 years. Over these 3 years, how many people had he seen scheming about me? How much gossip had he heard? Yet he never said a single word to me. He just waited. What makes you so sure I wouldn't do well? I asked him, my voice a little hoarse. Because you are too capable, he said with no praise in his tone, only the flatness of stating a fact. What a man fears most isn't an unvirtuous wife, but a wife who is too virtuous. A woman who is too virtuous makes him feel incompetent. Pei Yanzhou is exactly this kind of person. He isn't as good as you, and he knows it himself. But he is a man, a compiler at the Hanlin Academy, and the head of the Pei family. He can't stand it. He flipped open the storybook again, his tone lazy, as if talking about something that had nothing to do with him. I looked at him, looked at his unrealistically handsome face, looked at my reflection in his amber eyes, looked at his 3 years of persistence in peeling grapes and placing them on a saucer and keeping a handkerchief in his chest, looked at his patience in hanging name tags one by one on the 372 pots of flowers. Yin Heng, I called his name for the first time. Not Your Highness. But Yin Heng, his hand turning the page, paused again. This pause was a split second longer than the last, long enough for me to see his knuckles tighten slightly, pinching a shallow crease into the page. He raised his eyes. That pot of purple ribbon golden seal. I pointed at the deep purple flower in the courtyard. Did you write the words on the tag? Yes. What about it? Your handwriting is pretty good. He froze for a moment, then he smiled. That smile came very quickly, as if a switch had been flipped. First, the corners of his mouth turned up, then the corners of his eyes curved down, and then light danced in those amber eyes. It wasn't his usual lazy smile. It was genuine, unguarded, the kind of smile that didn't quite know what to do after being seriously praised. Xiao Sheng, he held the storybook up to his face, only revealing a pair of curved eyes. Can you give a heads up when you praise someone? I wasn't ready. Ready for what? Ready to accept it. He lowered the book a bit, revealing the lower half of his face. The corners of his mouth still couldn't be kept down, turning upwards. I didn't say anything more, picking up the porridge bowl and taking a sip. The porridge was already cold, the sweetness of the red dates settling at the bottom of the bowl. But that thing that had been blocking my heart for a long time seemed to loosen just a little bit. Right at that moment, the butler's voice suddenly came from outside the door. His footsteps were rushed, even more rushed than when Pei Yanzhou came last time. Your Highness, the Pei residence has sent an invitation. It says Madame Pei. Oh no, Lady Shen. He paused, seemingly not knowing how to address the widowed sister-in-law, who was about to marry into the Pei family. Wants to invite Miss Shi for tea. The location is set at Jising Tower in the south of the city tomorrow afternoon. The person who delivered the invitation said Miss Shen has important matters to discuss. I frowned. Madame Shen, that widowed sister-in-law of Pei Yanzhou who is about to become his new wife. She has been in the Pei family for 3 years, and from the day I married in until today, she has never taken the initiative to invite me for tea. Every time we meet, it is always her clutching a handkerchief and crying, while Pei Yanzhou hands her handkerchiefs beside her, and now she wants to invite me for tea, and alone at that. Yin Heng put down the storybook and glanced at me. His look was very interesting, with a faint, almost imperceptible curve at the corner of his mouth, as if he had already guessed what was going to happen. Are you going? Yes. I stood up, smoothed out my sleeves, and placed the porridge bowl on the table. I really want to see what she has to say. What right does she have to invite me for tea? Yin Heng nodded and got up from the couch. When he stood up, he was a whole head taller than me. The hem of his dark brocade robe swept across the great pattern on the Persian rug, covering that bunch of purple grapes. I'll escort you. No need, I can handle it myself. What if she poisons the tea? His expression was completely serious when he said this, as if he were genuinely considering the possibility. Are you serious? Number, he walked up to my side and looked down at me from above. He stood so close that I could smell the pine scent on him, crisp, cool, mixed with a tiny bit of ink stick smell. Probably rubbed off while reading the storybook just now. But I want to go watch the drama. What drama? The drama of you tearing into her. And what else? He didn't answer. He thought for a moment, walked around to my side, picked up an unpeeled grape from the table, and popped it into his own mouth. He chewed it, swallowed, and then headed toward the door. After taking 2 steps, he looked back at me, stretched out his hand, and made a please gesture. Let's go. Are you going in the front or the back? What do you mean front or back? When roasting people, should I block for you in the front, or pass you melon seeds from the back? Spit it out quickly, the tea house is closing soon. Jising Tower, the highest tea house in the capital city. A 5-story wooden structure soaring straight up from the top floor. You can overlook more than half of the capital city. Madame Shen made the appointment here because she didn't want their conversation to be overheard. It is too high. The private rooms on both sides are empty, and the sound of voices is blown away by the wind as soon as it leaves the mouth. While walking up the stairs, I reviewed all of Madame Shen's tricks in my mind, crying, complaining, retreating to advance, and using hard life to kidnap everyone. She had used them countless times over the past 3 years, and every time they worked at least on Pei Yanzhou. Pushing the door open, Madame Shen had already arrived. She wasn't wearing white today. She wore a water-red baize with an ivory-pleated skirt and a pure gold biao with a dangling pearl pinned in her hair bun. The biao was a relic left behind by the old lady of the Pei family back in the day, and logically speaking, a widowed sister-in-law like her shouldn't be wearing it. But not only did she wear it, she wore it properly, as if she already considered herself the mistress of the Pei family. Seeing me come in, she stood up. Her movements were so fast that her sleeve knocked over the teacup on the table. The tea spilled over a corner, but she didn't bother to wipe it. Her eye sockets were already red, and it wasn't an act, at least not entirely an act. I had never seen her looking so haggard. The dark circles under her eyes couldn't be covered even with 2 layers of powder. Her lips were cracked and peeling, the corners turned downwards. Sister Yaosheng. Her voice was trembling. The handkerchief was clenched tightly in her hand, wrung so hard her knuckles were white. I sat down opposite her, picked up the teacup in front of me, and blew on it. Top-grade Longjing, picked before Qingming. Tea soup was emerald green and clear. No wonder it is the signature of Jising Tower. Sister Shen, speak your mind. There is no need to beat around the bush between us. She bit her lip, leaving a shallow bloody mark on the petal-like lips. She looked at me with teary eyes for a long time. The tears rolled around in her eye socket several times, but just wouldn't fall. This trick of hers was much smarter than crying outright about to cry, but holding it back, it softens the heart the most. Sister, I know you hate me, Yanzhou. He did it for me. I tried to persuade him. I really did. I told him not to ruin his future for me. I told him to... I don't hate you. I took a sip of tea, Longjing, premium quality. The new tea from Jising Tower is indeed better than the stale tea of the Pei family. Really, him wanting to marry you has nothing to do with me anymore. I am now a person of Prince Jing's manor. His Majesty the Emperor has already issued the decree. Shen's expression stiffened for a second. That moment was so short that ordinary people wouldn't notice, but I did her chin tighten slightly and her jaw clenched. The dangling hairpin swayed on her head, the beads hitting the gold wires making a faint ding-dong sound. Then she cried again. This time it was real crying, tears falling in strings, washing 2 tracks through the powder she had just put on. Sister, you don't know, Yanzhou, She sobbed, her shoulders heaving, her voice intermittent. He still has you in his heart. He stayed awake all night last night, sitting in the study, taking out your portrait and looking at it over and over until dawn. I brought him ginseng soup, and he didn't even look at me. The sleep talk he muttered was all your name, calling Yaosheng, Yaosheng. I raised an eyebrow. Pei Yanzhou called my name in his sleep. This guy who can't even remember my birthday. There is a portrait of me in his study. I was the one who told him to hang that portrait. He said it was ugly and kept refusing to hang it, and eventually it was dropped. And so, I don't want to tear you apart. She sobbed, her handkerchief completely soaked, her voice getting lower and lower. How about you come back, Yanzhou? Can't let you go in his heart, and I don't want to be the sinner. I can back out. I am just a widowed sister-in-law to begin with. I shouldn't be greedy for these. A soft chuckle suddenly came from outside the private room. The laugh wasn't loud, but it was exceptionally clear on the quiet top floor of the tea house, as if someone really couldn't hold it in anymore. Then there was a slight rustling sound. The door was pushed open a crack from the outside. Yin Heng pushed the door open and came in, holding a small plate of melon seeds in his hand. Who knows which private room he had swiped them from just now. He strolled over next to me, pulled out a chair and sat down, crossed his legs and started cracking the melon seeds. He cracked them slowly and methodically, snapping them open with a crack of his front teeth, scooping the kernel away with the tip of his tongue, and lining the shells up neatly in a row along the edge of the plate. When Madame Shen saw him, her face visibly pale. Not turning pale after blushing, but instantly losing all its color like a chicken being strangled by the neck. Your Highness, the Prince of Jing, why are you? She stood up in a panic to curtsy, her knees giving out so she almost dropped to her knees. Her dangling hairpin slipped halfway out of her hair bun, swaying crookedly by her ear. Don't mind me. Yin Heng raised a hand and waved it at her, his tone as casual as if he were greeting a neighbor. You guys continue. I am just listening. You can talk after she finishes. I still have enough melon seeds. Madame Shen's lips were shaking, not shaking from crying, but shaking from fear. She looked at Yin Heng, then looked at me, her lips quivering for a long time before she barely managed to hold back her tears. She put the handkerchief down, spread it flat on the tabletop, and smoothed out the wrinkles on it with her hand. I looked at her and suddenly laughed. That laugh was short, like a light snort, sounding exceptionally clear in the quiet tea room. Sister Shen, you are here to act as a lobbyist for Pei Yanzhou, aren't you? Her body stiffened. She stopped while pinching the handkerchief, her breathing pausing for a moment. He had you come cry and put on a show of voluntarily bowing out so that I'd soften my heart and go back. Then he not only gets the beauty, but also doesn't have to bear the infamy of abandoning his first wife. After I go back, I'd just be sharing a husband with my former widowed sister-in-law. He enjoys the bliss of having two women with a good reputation to boot. Right? Madame Shen's tears stopped. Just like a faucet being turned off, they stopped abruptly. She looked at me, and the look in her eyes changed. It was no longer that pitiful and delicate look, but a kind of anger from being exposed. Her lips changed from turning downwards to pursing upwards way, and her eyebrows changed from a character H shape to deep inward hooks. Her hand clenched on the handkerchief on the tabletop, her fingernails piercing through the thin silk gauze. Xiaosheng, don't be ungrateful. Her voice suddenly lowered, so low that only Yin Heng and I could hear it. The frailty in her voice was flattened out, revealing a sharp texture underneath, like an awl wrapped in cotton finally piercing through the padding. Who do you think King Jing is? His Majesty the Emperor almost banished him to Lingnan back then because of the Crown Prince selection. He hasn't attended court these past few years, not because he is faking illness, but because His Majesty the Emperor won't let him. He is a thorn in His Majesty the Emperor's side. What good end can you possibly meet by following him? Sooner or later you'll fall into huge trouble right alongside him. When that time comes and you want to come back, the Pei family's doors won't be open for you. Oh? Yin Heng stopped cracking melon seeds. Seed pinched between his thumb and index finger hung in midair, not going into his mouth. He tilted his head to look at her, his phoenix eyes holding no anger, no smile. Only a chilling indifference that sent shivers down one's spine. I am a thorn in my royal brother's side. I was almost banished to Lingnan back then. He paused, placed the melon seed back into the saucer, and lightly tapped his finger against the rim twice, making a crisp ding sound. "Who told you that?" Madame Shen's face turned deathly pale. She knew she had said too much. Yin Hang smiled and brushed the melon seed shells from the edge of the saucer to one side. The shells were stacked neatly, like a miniature row of city walls. He stood up, propped his hands on the table, and leaned forward slightly. Getting a bit closer to Madame Shen, it wasn't a threatening posture, but his aura was enough to make Madame Shen shrink entirely back into her chair. "Go back and tell Pei Yanzhou." His voice wasn't heavy, not raised, not emphasized, exactly the same as how he usually spoke. But that lazy feeling was gone, leaving behind a clean, emotionless certainty, not a threat, but a statement, like stating a verdict that had already been written. This prince has his ex-wife covered. If he sends anyone to bother her again, he looked down at his nails and blew at a non-existent speck of melon seed shell in the crevice of his index fingernail. This prince hasn't attended court in 3 years. I wouldn't mind attending once for her. Madame Shen practically fled out of there. When she stood up, her skirt hem caught on the chair leg and the wood scraping made a harsh, crisp sound. But she didn't care. Her dangling hair ornament fell completely to the ground. The gold wire snapped, and the beads rolled all over the floor. But she didn't even pick them up. The door slammed against the doorframe with a bang as she pulled it shut behind her. I watched her figure retreating in a panic until she disappeared down the stairs. That step-shake lay all alone under the tea table, with a broken black hair still hanging on its pure gold hairpin shaft. Suddenly, I felt a bit refreshed, not the hearty satisfaction of a great revenge, but a clean and crisp comfort like suddenly taking a sip of iced plum juice on a muggy summer day, the coolness sliding down the throat all the way to the stomach. Yin Heng sat back down and pushed that saucer of melon seeds in front of me. The way he pushed the saucer was exactly the same as the way he pushed the grape saucer, pressing 2 fingers on the edge of the saucer and gently sending it forward. The bottom of the saucer slid along a steady trajectory on the wooden table, stopping right next to my hand without leaning to either side. "Are you mad?" he asked, a trace of an imperceptible probe in his tone. "Number, liar." He reached out and gently pressed the tight frown between my eyebrows with his fingertip. His fingertip was warm, with a thin layer of callus, giving a way rough touch when pressing between the eyebrows. "It is twisted into a pretzel here. It could crush 3 mosquitoes. I swatted his hand away with a smack. It was as loud as last time. "Keep your hands to yourself." He pulled his hand back, not annoyed. He looked down at the back of his hand that had been slapped red, flexed his fingers a bit, and casually rested his hand on the chair's armrest. Then he leaned back against the chair, crossed his legs, and smiled until his eyes curved. That smile of his was a genuine smile. His lips pursed down 1/2 inch, but his eyes were smiling. When those narrow phoenix eyes curved, the outer corners swept up into a beautiful arc, like the tips of a crescent moon. "See Yaosheng back in the Pei family, did no one ever protect you?" I didn't say anything. He didn't press further either. He just sat there quietly, looking out the window. The windows of Jiaxing Tower faced right towards the market in the south of the city, overlooking the densely packed rooftops and the yellow tiles of the imperial city in the distance. The wind blew in, carrying the noise of the street market downstairs, and the scent of osmanthus. The long jing in the cup had already gone cold, the tea turning from a bright green to a deep emerald, settling with a trace of chill. He just pulled another grape out of his sleeve like a magic trick, peeled it, and placed it in my palm. That grape was slightly warmed by his body heat, not icy cold like last time. The surface of the fruit had a thin sheen of moisture, glistening and translucent in the afternoon light. "It is okay," he said. I looked down at the glistening grape in my palm. My throat felt terribly choked up. This time, it wasn't from feeling wronged. 3 days later, the imperial edict arrived at Prince Jing's mansion. It was a brilliantly sunny morning. The 372 pots of flowers in the courtyard had just been watered, and the water droplets on their leaves were still sparkling in the sunlight. A bestowed marriage. I stood in the main hall, listening to the eunuch's high-pitched voice finish, reading the imperial edict, completely dumbfounded. The eunuch this time wasn't Eunuch Wang, but a younger one with a really loud voice. When he reached the final words, "Respect this," he dragged out a long note that circled the beams of the main hall 3 times before fading. The guards and maids behind me were kneeling all over the floor. Only Yin Heng didn't kneel, he is a prince, so he didn't have to kneel to receive the imperial edict for his own bestowed marriage, just standing to the side and taking it with one hand. The emperor, entrusted by the mandate of heaven, decrees, Shi Yaosheng is virtuous, gentle, and dignified. Originally Lady Shi of the Pei family, now that Pei Yanzhou has divorced his wife of his own accord, Lady Shi has regained her free status. I hereby specially bestow her in marriage to Prince Jing, Yin Heng as his primary consort. An auspicious day shall be chosen for the wedding. Respect this. The eunuch smiled brightly and handed me the imperial edict. The imperial edict was mounted on bright yellow silk, with a red sandalwood roller, feeling heavy in my hand. The handwriting on it was the work of a Hanlin Academy clerk, in neat Guanche script with every right falling stroke drawn out long and steady. I remembered when I received the Pei family's marriage contract 3 years ago. That marriage contract was also in Guanche script, but it was written by Pei Yanzhou himself. His handwriting was rather thin, with tightly knit bone structure, just like him. Now, this imperial edict in my hand has another man's name written on it. The eunuch bowed to me. Congratulations, Miss Ji. Oh no, I should call you Princess Consort Jing now. I took the imperial edict, my fingers numb. That silk was cool to the touch, the chill going all the way from my fingertips to my wrist. Yin Heng stood beside me, took the imperial edict and took a look. The way he looked at the imperial edict was exactly the same as how he looked at a storybook, tilting his head, holding it with one hand, scanning it from top to bottom. Then he raised an eyebrow, a smirk on his face, closed the imperial edict and handed it to the butler. Royal brother is pretty efficient. Approved in just 3 days. I thought I'd have to wait until next month. After the eunuch left, it was just the two of us left in the main hall. The kneeling servants outside were led away by the butler, and the courtyard gates were closed too. The whole courtyard only had the rustling sound of the wind blowing the leaves and flowers, and the sound of chopping meat coming from the kitchen in the distance. I turned to look at him. You knew beforehand. You went to see His Majesty, the Emperor. I've been rushing them for 3 days, he said matter-of-factly, putting the imperial edict on the table and pouring himself a cup of tea. If the edict wasn't issued soon, Pei Yanzhou would be blocking my manor's gate every day, so annoying. Yesterday he stood at the gate for 2 whole shichen, and the guards couldn't chase him away even after trying 3 times. He is still coming around, every day. He took a sip of tea and gave me a look. That look seemed to say, your ex-husband sure is persistent. The day before yesterday he brought your old makeup box, saying you left it at the Pei family and he wanted to return it to its rightful owner. Yesterday was even more ridiculous. He brought a trunk of your clothes, packing up everything from your wedding dress to your everyday clothes. I had someone carry it right back exactly as it was and told him that my princess consort doesn't lack those few scraps. Just leave all your old clothes behind. I'll get you new ones later. I looked at his matter-of-fact face and the steaming cup of tea in his hand. Suddenly, I couldn't quite tell if he was being serious or joking, but his expression was very serious, so serious that it made me feel he had actually made the butler throw that trunk of old clothes back to the gate of the Pei family. Yin Heng, you treat me so well. What exactly are you after? He paused his movements of drinking tea. The teacup stopped at his lips, and the steam clouded over his chin, blurring his expression into a patch of white mist. He put the cup down, rested it on his knee, and thought about it. It wasn't the kind of pause pretending to think, he was really thinking about it seriously. After thinking for a while, he raised his eyes. I am after you. What do you want from me? I am after your smarts, your charm, and the fact that you dared to squat down and wipe my shoes after stepping on my foot. He rattled off 3 in one breath, then continued counting on his fingers. I am after how 3 years in the Pei family didn't wear you down into a block of wood, how your first reaction after hearing the imperial edict just now was to ask what I wanted instead of giving thanks, how you scold people without swearing, how you use an abacus faster than a Ministry of Revenue clerk, how you frown when looking at account books, how you sniffle when you smell osmanthus cape, how you clearly really like that silk flower but have never worn it. All right. I cut him off, my ears burning hot. The heat spread up from the base of my neck, like someone had pressed a hot towel behind my ears. I reached up and fanned myself. Didn't catch much of a breeze, and felt even hotter, Stop counting, he smiled. That smile moved from the corners of his mouth to the corners of his eyes, then to the tips of his eyebrows, fully opening up that usually lazy exterior of his. He reached out and ruffled the top of my head, not a half-hearted pat, but a genuine ruffle, his fingers threading through my hair and pausing on my crown for a second. Xiaosheng, I don't want anything from you. I just want you to live well. You had no one to protect you in the Pei family, but here you do. You used to write strategies and sign other people's names, but here you'll sign your own. It is as simple as that. I dodged his hand, picked up the tea and took a huge gulp. It was hot, the tip of my tongue went numb, and the skin on the roof of my mouth was scalded till it curled up. But the pain was just right. Pain keeps you awake, and when you are awake, you won't get soft-hearted over a few words. But the stone that had been blocking my heart for 3 years seemed to loosen up by more than just a little. It went from one giant rock to a few small movable stones. I felt like I could see their shapes. Yin Heng, there is one more thing I want to ask you. Yeah, are you a thorn in His Majesty the Emperor's side? Is what Lady Shen said true? He put the teacup on the table and leaned back in his chair. That leaning posture was very relaxed, but his eyes were sinking, not heavy, but a rare, serious earnestness. I almost was once. It wasn't the kind of succession struggle you are thinking of. It was a private matter 3 years ago. My royal brother wanted to arrange a marriage for me. He didn't choose you, but his cousin on his mother's side. I refused and rejected it 3 times. The last time we had a fight in the imperial study. I threw an inkstone, splashing my royal brother all over. He paused. I really threw it. After that, my royal brother ignored me for half a year, didn't even let me attend the morning court, and made me reflect on my mistakes at home. So you just didn't go to court for 3 years. Later it wasn't about reflecting on my mistakes, I just got used to it. Not going to court is pretty nice. I can sleep an extra 2 hours. I can also mess around with my flowers in the estate. Besides, he tilted his head to look at me, the corners of his mouth curling up slightly. I can still go whenever I want to anyway, like that day in the Golden Luan Hall, didn't I go? I went for you first time in 3 years. Outside the door, the butler came to announce something again. This time the footsteps were even more urgent, running so fast his boots almost flew off. Your Highness, someone's here from the Pei residence. This time it is Lord Pei himself. He says he wants to congratulate Your Highness and Miss Xie in person. Yin Heng and I exchanged a look. He raised an eyebrow, and the curve of his lips deepened. It was that here we go again expression, like he was enjoying a recurring farce. It is the man himself this time, he said, his tone carrying a hint of anticipation for a good show. I put down the teacup and stood up. The hem of my skirt brushed against the chair, stirring up a slight breeze. I'll see him. I really want to see what else he can possibly say. He was a bit surprised, his eyebrows raising for a moment. Are you sure? I am sure. He stood up, walked over to me, and naturally stood half a step to my left, not blocking in front, not guarding behind. But side by side he was a head taller than me, and standing on the left, his shadow perfectly merged with my shadow cast in the sunlight, making it look like one person's. Let's go, he said, tilting his head to glance at me. Those phoenix eyes held a hint of a smile, but mostly they were serious. Princess consort. I glared at him. He smiled even more happily. Pei Yanzhou stood in the center of the main hall of the Jing Prince's manor. The doors of the main hall were wide open, and the draft poured in from behind him, blowing the cuffs of his official robe so they flapped loudly. That scarlet official robe was still the same one he wore to court, but it wasn't as crisp anymore. There were obvious wrinkles on the back and under the armpits, probably having not been changed for a few days. He had lost weight after 3 days of not seeing him. His cheekbones stuck out, and the cheeks below them were hollowed into 2 shadows. The dark circles under his eyes were even deeper than Shen's. Greenish stubble popped up on his chin, spreading all the way from his jawline to his Adam's apple, thick and dense, making him look 10 years older than usual. He looked like a tree drained of its water, standing witheredly and rigidly in the center of the main hall, looking at the 2 people coming in from outside the door, seeing Yin Heng and me walking in side by side. His gaze first landed on me and paused for about 2 breaths. Then it moved to Yin Heng and paused for another breath. It stopped at the half-step distance between us. It was exactly this distance, just enough for a person's shoulder to squeeze in. but no one's shoulder had squeezed in. His Adam's apple bobbed. That Adam's apple slid up and down beneath the loose skin of his neck like a pebble stuck in a dried-up riverbed. Yao Sheng, His Highness Prince Jing. His voice was even hoarser than last time. It was like he had a handful of sand in his throat. I sat down in the main seat. That chair was made of red sandalwood, the armrests carved with backward-glancing chillins, and the backrest engraved with pines and cranes for longevity. Yin Heng sat in the guest seat next to me, not taking the main seat, but yielding it to me. He pulled up a stool for himself and sat beside me, casually picking up that cup of completely cold tea from earlier and taking a sip cold Longjing. But he didn't mind. "Lord Pei," I said. My tone was flat, not cold, not hot, just like addressing a colleague I didn't know very well. He clenched his fists, hanging by his sides, his 5 fingers squeezed until the knuckles turned white, and the veins on the back of his hands bulged. "Like a few twisted earthworms, I came to congratulate you. His Majesty the Emperor granting the marriage to Prince Jing is a tremendously joyous occasion." "Thanks, is there anything else?" Silence in the main hall. There was only the soft sound brought by the draft blowing through the sound of a leaf turning over in the courtyard, the sizzle of hot oil popping in a wok in the distant kitchen. He stood there, planted like a nail in the ground, his lips moving a few times. His lips were dry and peeling, with a crack in the middle of his lower lip oozing a tiny bead of blood. Finally, Yao Sheng about the locust control. "I am sorry." I held my teacup and didn't say anything. The tea was freshly served by the butler, Beluoshan, its aroma stronger than Longjing, and the tea's color was darker too. I twirled the teacup, watching the tea leaves swirling at the bottom. "That strategy, you really did write it. I just copied it from start to finish. Changed the notes in your draft into the main text and signed my name. I shouldn't have." His Adam's apple bobbed again, the veins on his forehead throbbing. He raised his hand to press his temple, and that hand was shaking. Not faking it, it was really shaking. I shouldn't have pushed the credit to Shen. The nights you stayed up for the locust control, the books you looked up, the drafts you wrote, they were originally yours. I hogged it all to myself for 3 years, and even used it to trade for a marriage. I let you down. Then why did you push it? I put down my teacup. The porcelain cup and saucer clinked with a crisp sound. You pushed it to your sister-in-law because you didn't know I wrote it, or because you knew I wrote it, and deliberately pushed it to someone else. He was silent for a long time, so long that the sunflower seeds Yin Heng had been cracking next to him were already piled up into a third little mountain, with a row of shells lining the edge of the saucer like soldiers in formation. The butler came in and swapped them for a warm plate. He smiled at the butler and kept cracking them, because if the Imperial Court knew it was you, you would be summoned to the Imperial Academy, or even enter the court as an official. His voice was very low, so low you had to prick up your ears to hear clearly. It was intermittent, like dragging a heavy object through the mud. "Although our great Yong dynasty has no precedent for female officials, your strategy was written too well. Those people in the Ministry of Works would know with just one look that the person who wrote this is no ordinary person. If His Majesty the Emperor makes an exception and summons you to the Imperial Academy, you would leave the Pei family. I was afraid that once you left, you wouldn't come back." I laughed, not a happy laugh, but the kind of laugh that finds things absurd to the extreme. A snort out of the nose, short but heavy. The corners of my mouth were turned up, but there wasn't a hint of a smile in my eyes. Yin Heng's hand paused from cracking seeds. He glanced at me and didn't say a word. "Pei Yanzhou, you were afraid I'd leave, so you stole my credit. You were afraid I'd stand out, so you simply pushed all my hard work onto Shen, onto a widowed sister-in-law who knows nothing. You'd rather let the whole world think she wrote it than let anyone know it was me." I stood up and walked up to him, less than 3 feet away from him. I could smell the sour stench of his unwashed clothes from the past few days and a very faint scent of sandalwood that was the smell of the Pei family ancestral hall. He probably knelt in the ancestral hall for another whole night. And then in the royal court, in front of all the civil and military officials, you used this stolen credit to exchange for a favor to divorce me and marry her. His face was as ashen as a piece of paper. That once high-spirited face of the top 3 scholar was now like window paper soaked and rotting in the rain, breaking at a single poke. "And you call this being afraid I'd leave?" He opened his mouth, unable to say a thing. His lips parted and closed and parted like a stranded fish on the shore. I stepped back. stepped back until I was standing side by side with Yin Heng. I could smell the mix of pine and sunflower seeds on him. It was weird but really settling. Pei Yanzhou, you are not scared of me leaving. You are scared of me being better than you. You are terrified that a woman is more capable than you, her light is too bright, blinding you, so you just snuff her out, but you can't snuff it out completely, so you just lock her in the house, slap a lid on it, and hope nobody ever sees the light underneath. Those words were like a knife stabbing right into his chest. His whole body swayed. He wasn't faking it. He stumbled back half a step, his heel hitting the raised brass strip on the threshold with a dull thud. Yin Heng spoke up leisurely from behind. His voice drifted over lazy, sounding like he was trying to break up a fight, but actually just adding fuel to the fire. Lord Pei, the tea's cold, want another cup? I'll have the servants brew you a fresh one. Cold tea is bad for the stomach. Pei Yanzhou ignored him from start to finish. From the moment he walked in until now, he hadn't even glanced at Yin Heng. His eyes were dead locked on me, completely bloodshot, the whites already turning pink. He took 2 steps forward, then stopped again. That distance less than 2 feet away now, he could touch my sleeve just by reaching out. But he didn't dare. Yaosheng, his voice was trembling so much he could barely form a sentence. Give me a chance, I know you hate me. But after 3 years of marriage, you should at least give me a chance to make it up to you. I can give up everything. I don't want my official position. I don't want my salary. I don't want my pride. You come back. I'll apologize to you. Apologize for the rest of my life. I will never touch the strategies you write again. It is totally fine if you want the whole world to know you are the one writing them. You come back, Yaosheng. I'll kowtow to you. As he spoke, his knees bent way, as if he really intended to kneel down in public. I took a step back. That step back was very fast, so fast that even I didn't expect it. Stepping back to Yin Heng's side, I bumped the melon seed saucer in his hand. The saucer shook, and 2 melon seed shells fell from the edge of the plate. It is gone. Lord Pei, you still have to maintain your benevolent and righteous gentleman persona. Don't stay in the Prince of Jing's mansion for too long. It won't sound good if word gets out. His hands were shaking. All 5 fingers were shaking as if in a spasm, clenching into fists and then loosening, clenching into fists and then loosening. The knuckles were squeezed so tight that every single one turned white, like 10 broken sticks. He opened his mouth, closed it, and opened it again. In the end, he couldn't say anything. He gave me a deep look, a look that contained too many things: regret, unwillingness, pleading, and a trace of despair of finally realizing what he had lost. Then he turned and walked away. When he came out of the main hall, he tripped on the threshold. That pair of official boots was custom-made the year he became Tanhua, and the soles had been worn for 3 years and were already thin, slipping on the brass strip. He stumbled and grabbed the doorframe, the fingerbones of his other hand knocking a heavy sound against the old wooden doorframe. Then he pushed against the doorframe to straighten up, strode out, and did not look back again. The hall quieted down. Yin Heng pushed a cup of fresh tea in front of me. That cup of tea was kept warm by his palms cupping it, and it was still steaming. The tea fragrance rising in curling wisps from the cup's rim, making a circle in the air and then dissipating. Your hands are shaking. I looked down at my hands. They were indeed shaking, from the finger roots to the fingertips. They were all way trembling, and my nails knocked against the wall of the teacup, making a faint wada-da sound. I clenched my hands into fists, but couldn't steady them, let go and clenched again, still shaking. He didn't hold my hand, he just pushed the teacup forward a bit, pushed it to the position where my fingers could just touch the cup's wall. The temperature of the cup's wall transmitted up through my finger pads, starting from the first finger to the second to the third. That wave of warmth was mild, not boiling hot, just enough to let my stiff finger joints bend back again. Drink something hot, freshly brewed. I picked up the teacup and took a sip. I didn't get scalded this time. The temperature was just right. The tea had been warmed by his palms. Yin Heng, thank you. He tilted his head to look at me and gave a little smile. That smile was very faint, with just a bit more warmth than his usual sluggishness, like the sunlight on a winter morning, not bright, but definitely warm. He rearranged the sunflower seed saucer, and the pile of neatly cracked seed shells looked like a miniature city wall, completely encircling the edge of the saucer. What is to thank? You are my princess consort. Who else would I protect if not you? I protected 72 pots of flowers. One more won't hurt. I didn't say anything, but the corners of my lips curled up a bit, just a bit. It was so fast that before I even realized it, he had already looked away. The wedding date was set for half a month later. The steward of Prince Jing's mansion flipped through the old almanac 3 times and picked an even-numbered day that was auspicious for weddings and sacrifices, but taboo for raising roof beams. Yin Heng took a look at the date, said not bad, and then told the steward to bring out all 372 pots of flowers in the mansion and rearrange them. He said the flowers couldn't be uglier than the bride on the wedding day. The mansion was full of old maidservants moving flower pots. The courtyard, the corridors, and the bases of the walls were completely covered with them. Yin Heng directed things personally, holding his flower roster and calling roll one by one. Move the purple ribbon golden seal to the door of the main hall. Put the golden thread drunken hibiscus under the east wing window. And move that pot of green calyx plum further away. It attracts bugs. Don't let it near the bride's vanity box. In this half a month, 3 things happened. The first thing, Pei Yanzhou's benevolent and righteous gentleman persona collapsed. It collapsed faster than the tiles on the 5th floor of Jising Tower, shattering before the news even had a chance to spread. It all started because someone in the court submitted a memorial impeaching Pei Yanzhou for deceiving the emperor. That person wasn't from my family, wasn't one of Prince Jing's men, and wasn't one of Pei Yanzhou's usual rivals in the Hanlin Academy. It was someone no one ever expected, the director of the Tuntian department in the Ministry of Works, an old man in his 60s who usually barely spoke 2 words. The reason he gave in his memorial was that the locust control strategy was flawed, causing the locust plague in the south to resurge this year. And as the investigation to hold someone accountable came down, it naturally had to trace back to the original author of that strategy from 3 years ago. The very first thing in the investigation was to compare handwriting. Yin Heng only did one thing during the investigation. One day at the morning court, he made a rare appearance in the Golden Luan Hall. Instead of going to a corner to doze off, he stood properly at the head of the military officials and said one thing to His Majesty the Emperor. Imperial brother, I am quite interested in agricultural matters. I heard that the original draft of the locust control strategy from back then is still archived in the Ministry of Works. Could I borrow it for a look? His Majesty the Emperor approved. None of the civil and military officials thought there was anything wrong with this. Prince Jing hadn't attended court for 3 years, so his sudden interest in locust control was probably just him wanting to learn more about his wife's skills after marrying Xie Yaosheng. This reason made perfect sense. The people at the Ministry of Works dug out that original manuscript buried at the very bottom of the archives. The 3-year-old paper had white marks worn into its creases, and the edges had a few small notches chewed out by bookworms. But the handwriting was clearly legible. It was an elegant and striking Liu-style small regular script, with well-spaced structures and precise strokes. It was completely different from the thin, stiff Yu-style calligraphy seen in Pei Yanzhou's everyday memorials. The old scholar from the Imperial College's handwriting appraisal department laid the 2 writing samples on the desk and compared them all day long. When it got dark, he wrote 8 words on the appraisal report. Not the same hand, not Lady Shen's writing. Then they tracked it down further and found that the handwriting on the original manuscript was exactly the same as the handwriting in the family letters archived at the home of Lord Qi, the Chancellor of the National Academy. Those family letters were written by Xie Yaosheng to her father before she married into the Pei family. The last one was written 3 days before her wedding, and at the end there was a line of small text. I have recently been studying the complete treatise on agriculture and have gained some insights into the habits of locusts. I will discuss this in detail with father when your daughter returns home for a visit. The imperial court blew up. Not a literal explosion, but an absolute uproar. The civil and military officials had never seen such an absurd thing, a Hanlin Academy compiler taking a strategy written by his wife, reporting it to the court as his own achievement, and then publicly pushing the credit onto another woman right in the Golden Luan Hall. This wasn't just stealing credit, this was playing the imperial court for a bunch of monkeys. Pei Yanzhou kneeled in the Golden Luan Hall. his forehead knocking against the golden bricks with a loud thump-thump. He kowtowed so hard that his forehead broke open, and blood trickled down from his brow bone, flowing into the crevices of the golden bricks and dyeing that seam dark red. I indeed hid something. My ex-wife, Lady she did participate in the discussion of the strategy back then. The reason I didn't include her name is because Pei Yanzhou. His Majesty the Emperor interrupted him. His Majesty the Emperor's voice was 100 times colder than when he was reviewing the memorials the other day. It wasn't the laughter of watching a play, but the coldness of being truly angered. How many years have you stood in this golden Luan Hall? A 5th-rank compiler from the Hanlin Academy. Don't you know what deceiving the sovereign is? You said to my face that this strategy was written by Lady Shen, and now it is found out to be written by Lady Shi. What do you take me for? I am guilty. I am guilty. In the end, the credit for controlling the locusts was returned to me. His Majesty, the Emperor, issued a decree, retroactively recognizing and rewarding my strategy from back then, and granting me the title of County Princess Huian with an estate of 300 households. The imperial edict stated clearly, Lady Shi Yaosheng, proficient in agricultural administration, was unrevealed to the world. Now her name is rectified to encourage talented women in the world, a woman earning a title through her own abilities. In this dynasty, this was the first time. The day the imperial edict arrived at Prince Jing's manor, Yin Heng took the imperial edict and read it over 3 times. He couldn't wipe the smile off his face all day. While we were eating dinner that night, he said to me, "You know what? This imperial edict makes me even happier than when my dad made me a prince back in the day." Why? Because Dad made me a prince just based on my birth. His Majesty the Emperor made you a county princess based on your abilities. You are more awesome than me. I kept my head down and shoveled rice into my mouth. There were chunks of taro in the rice, which old man Zhao from the kitchen had specially added. He said a new bride entering the household needs to eat taro, as it symbolizes meeting a good person. The second thing, Madame Shen ran away. Pei Yanzhou was fined 3 years' salary and demoted 2 ranks from a primary 5th-rank Hanlin Academy compiler down to a secondary 6th-rank Hanlin Academy examining editor. The very evening the news got out, Madame Shen packed up her valuables and bolted. The guy she ran off with was a middle-aged cloth merchant surnamed Zhou, who sold cloth between the capital city and Songjiang year-round, dropping by the Pei family every 2 or 3 months to deliver fresh batches of cloud brocade. Madame Shen used to get goods from him every season, and the 2 of them had been secretly having an affair for ages. By my 2nd year married into the Pei family, I vaguely noticed something wasn't right. One time when Madame Shen was picking out fabrics, the Zhou merchant's hand accidentally brushed the back of hers, and she didn't pull away. Back then I just figured I saw it wrong and didn't think much of it. Thinking about it now, that touch was on purpose. Pei Yanzhou chased 30 miles out of the city, only to find a letter. The letter was left by Lady Shen in his study, pressed under the inkstone. That inkstone was the looming inkstone I gave him 3 years ago, made of stone from the old pits of Shi County, carved with a small deer looking back. I was gone, but the inkstone was still there. The letter said, "Yanzhou, our fate has come to an end. You can't give me the life I want. Back when your older brother was alive, I was the proper young mistress of the household. After your brother passed away, I was just a widowed sister-in-law living under someone else's roof. After you divorced Lady She, I originally thought I could hold my head high and be your proper wife. But now you are even about to lose your official post. You can't even support yourself, and you still want to support me. Forget about me." When I heard the news, I was watering flowers in the garden of Prince Jing's mansion. Yin Heng had shared 20 pots of his flowers with me recently, all easy-to-grow varieties: purple jasmine, globe amaranth, and longevity flowers, which wouldn't die whether they were watered too much or too little. Holding a water dipper, I watered them pot by pot, feeling very peaceful inside as I watered them. Yin Heng walked over from behind without a sound. He never made a sound walking in his own home. Then he rested his chin on my shoulder, his sharp chin fitting perfectly into the hollow of my shoulder. His breath puffed on my neck, warm and ticklish. "Did you hear? Your ex-husband's bride to be ran away." His tone was like he was reporting today's weather, no gloating, no deliberately hushed voice. Just a plain and simple statement. Yeah. How does it feel? I thought about it. I thought about a lot, thinking about how Shen was passive-aggressive towards me for 3 years in the Pei family. Thinking about what she said at Jiaxing Tower. Thinking about her crying and persuading me, "Come back, you can be a concubine." Thinking about how she finally chose a cloth merchant instead of Pei Yanzhou. Deserved it? Who deserves it? Pei Yanzhou or Shen? They both deserve it. He laughed out loud. The laughter came from just above my shoulder, vibrating so much that my collarbones were tingling slightly. His chin shifted in the crook of my shoulder, moving a little closer to me. I picked up the water scoop and swung it backward, splashing water all over his face, a few drops clinging to his eyelashes, sparkling. He reached out and wiped his face, water dripping through his fingers onto his black brocade robe. But he didn't care. Instead of getting mad, he laughed, his phoenix eyes curving into 2 crescent moons. "Xiaosheng, you are getting bolder and bolder. Last time you stepped on my foot on Duke Avenue, and now you splash water in my face in my own garden. Didn't His Highness Prince Jing say that I can do whatever I want here?" I put the water dipper into the bucket, turned around, crossed my arms and looked at him. He narrowed his eyes at me. A light was dancing in those water-soaked eyes, not flames of anger, but an amused, appreciative and doting light. The curve of his mouth slowly deepened, changing from a smile into a genuine laugh, and then he reached out and flicked off the last water drop from his eyelashes. Fine, whatever works, splashing my face works too. The third thing, 3 days before the wedding, Pei Yanzhou came. He didn't come to Prince Jing's mansion, but right in front of me, on his knees, that day. I went to the tailor shop to pick up my wedding dress. The embroiderers from Prince Jing's mansion worked non-stop for 10 days and nights to get the dress done. The fabric was the newly arrived yun brocade from Jiangnan Weaving, pure red, embroidered with gold thread showing a phoenix flying through peonies. It was who knows how many times more exquisite than the wedding dress with the phoenix veil I wore at the Pei family. I stood in front of the bronze mirror to try it on. The embroiderer knelt on the floor to take in the waistline for me, murmuring compliments like, "Miss, your waist is so slim." I looked at myself in the bronze mirror, a size thinner than 3 years ago, but also sharper than 3 years ago. The woman in the red wedding dress no longer had the shyness and anticipation of a bride-to-be in her eyes. There was only a very calm certainty that no one could shake. When I stepped out the door, there was someone standing at the entrance of the alley. Pei Yanzhou. He looked even more haggard than the last time he visited Prince Jing's manor. That lower 6th rank official robe he wore after his demotion cyan mixed with grey-white, like faded tree bark, hung loosely on his body, leaving a huge gap at the shoulders. His cheekbones were higher, his eye sockets deeper, and his lips were terribly chapped and peeling. Seeing me push the door open and come out, his eyes lit up for a second, like the final pop of a dying candle. Then that light quickly faded away. "Yaosheng, I'll just say a few words." I stopped in my tracks. The guards behind me immediately stepped forward, hands resting on their sword hilts. The 2 guards Yin Heng assigned to me were his former personal guards, retired from the northern frontier. Usually they didn't make a peep, but the moment there was a situation, their swords would be halfway out of their sheaths. I raised my hand to stop them. "Speak." He took 2 steps closer. The soles of his shoes stepped on the stone floor without making a sound. He probably hadn't eaten much these past few days. Even his walking was so light and floaty it was like stepping on cotton. He stopped when he was 3 steps away from me. Suddenly, with a thud, he fell to his knees. His knees smashed onto the bluestone slabs with a muffled thud, out on the main street. In broad daylight, passers-by stopped one after another. The clerks at the fabric shop poked their heads out. The candied whore vendor forgot to pedal, and several windows on the 2nd floor of the tea house across the street were pushed open with a swoosh. "Yaosheng, I was wrong." His voice was hoarse, like sandpaper rubbing across his throat. Not like that full-bodied "I am guilty" when he knelt in the Golden Luan Hall, but floaty, hoarse, like sandpaper rubbing over dead wood. Pausing for half a breath with every word he said, "I shouldn't have coveted Shen's gentleness. She treated me just a little bit nice, and I felt she was closer than my own mother. I shouldn't have stolen your credit. I altered every word you wrote and signed my own name. I lied to myself saying it was because I am your husband, and what is yours is mine. I shouldn't have divorced you in the royal court. I knelt in the ancestral hall all night that night, and my knees are still bruised even now. I was totally out of my mind. I'll accept whatever you scold me with. I looked down at him, this once high-spirited Tanoir, who rode a tall horse to my house to marry me 3 years ago. The matchmaker said he had boundless prospects and will surely achieve great things in the future. Now he knelt in the mud, his knees covered in dust, his forehead still bearing the scar from smashing his head in the golden Luan Hall that day, like a piece of shattered porcelain that wasn't glued back properly. Now kneeling in the mud, his knees covered in dust. Come back. He looked up at me, his eyes completely red, the blood vessels in the whites of his eyes even worse than last time. His pupils cloudy, missing that clear brightness from 3 years ago. I don't want anything anymore. I don't want the official title. I don't want my pride. I don't even want that 300 taels salary. Before you went to Prince Jing's manor, we were husband and wife for 3 years, and you treated me so well during those 3 years. Come back. I'll make amends to you, make amends for a lifetime. I'll work like a horse and toil like an ox for the rest of my life. I accept it. Pei Yanzhou. I cut him off. He shut his mouth and looked at me pitifully. That look in his eyes, it wasn't the look you give a lover, nor the look you give an enemy. It was the look of a drowning man staring at the last piece of driftwood on the shore. He didn't love me. He needed a life preserver. Madame Shen ran off. His official post was gone. Public opinion had ripped him to shreds, and he had become a rat crossing the street in this capital city that everyone wanted to beat. Crawling back to me now wasn't because of love, it was because of fear. Afraid of facing all this alone, I squatted down and looked him level in the eyes. You are kneeling to the wrong person. He froze. Why didn't you kneel to yourself on our wedding day? When you stole my credit and wrote memorials for 3 years, why didn't you kneel? When you handed my hard work over to Madame Shen in court? When you said you were going to divorce me, why didn't you kneel? Madame Shen ran off and you crawled back to me, saying you'll work like a horse and toil like an ox for the rest of your life. Why the hell would I want an ox that comes crawling back to graze on old grass? He had his mouth open, the corners of his mouth turned down. Tears flowed from the corners of his eyes, trailing along the angles of his cheekbones to the tip of his chin, smashing one by one onto the bluestone slab by his knees. He cried and sobbed, like a child punished to kneel for doing something wrong. Yao Sheng, I am begging you. I know I've wronged you. I am not the one you should kneel to. I stood up and patted the non-existent dust off my skirt. The skirt was a newly made moon-white everyday dress from the manor, with a few inconspicuous little flowers embroidered with silver thread at the cuffs. I recognized them. They were osmanthus flowers. Yin Han had asked the embroiderer to add them. He said osmanthus flowers are good, fragrant, not ostentatious, just like you. The one you should kneel to is yourself. Kneel to the you from 3 years ago. Kneel to the man who married me but didn't cherish me. Kneel to the Hanlin Academy compiler who knew full well that the strategies I wrote would benefit the people, but put someone else's name on them. Kneel to the hypocrite who solemnly vowed in the golden Luan Hall that Lady Shen studies agricultural books day and night. Kneel to you. Now that Lady Shen has run away, the credit is gone, and the official position is lost. You think of me again, Pei Yanzhou. I am not your fallback. I have never been anyone's fallback, and I never will be. His lips were trembling. Tears and snot mixed together, and a muffled, suppressed sound came from his throat, not crying, nor shouting, but some kind of blocked wail. He knelt there, like a stone statue eroded beyond recognition by the wind and rain. I turned and walked away, walked out of the alley without looking back. Turning the street corner, Yin Heng's carriage was parked there. I don't know when it arrived. A black-painted carriage, 2 juju-bred horses, dark green silk carriage curtains with an inconspicuous Jing embroidered on the corner. The guard driving the carriage saw me come out, jumped down from the shaft, and pulled the door open. The person leaning sideways against the soft cushions inside put down the storybook, lifted the curtain, and looked at me. His gaze went from my eyebrows to my chin, then back to my eyes, pausing for a very brief moment. Didn't cry. My eyes are red. The wind blew it. I rubbed my eyes and the back of my hand was dry. I really didn't cry. He didn't expose me. He just reached out his hand, palm up, 4 fingers slightly held together. That hand hung in mid-air, stopping at the carriage door, waiting. I hesitated for a split second, but still put my hand into his palm. He gave a hard tug, pulling me onto the carriage without much effort. The carriage curtain dropped, blocking out the noisy street sounds outside. The carriage had a faint pine scent. The cushions were soft satin, and the backrest supported my waist just right. He held my hand in his palm, his thumb gently rubbing my knuckles, pressing them one by one, from the base joints to the middle joints to the top joints, like he was checking to make sure every single bone was still there. The carriage rocked along. Whenever the wheels rolled over the cracks in the bluestone slabs, there would be a slight bump, and with every bump, his hand would tighten a bit more. After a long time, I spoke Yin Heng, ere he used his other hand to turn a page of his storybook. The page rustled. He wasn't looking at it at all. The wedding in 3 days. What, want to back out? His tone was light, like he was saying, what is for dinner tonight? But his grip on my hand tightened a fraction. It wasn't deliberate. His fingers instinctively clenched, his finger pads sinking into the back of my hand. I took a deep breath. It was a very deep breath, inhaling nothing but the pine scent and the faint smell of ink on him. I want to say I am marrying you, not because of the imperial edict, not to get back at Peiyanzhou, and not because I have nowhere else to go. He turned his head to look at me. The light inside the carriage was very dim, with only a sliver of afternoon sunlight filtering through the gap in the curtains, shining right on his brow bone. There was no smile in his phoenix eyes, nor any tension, just a very quiet waiting. He was waiting for me to finish, not rushing, not interrupting. It is because you make me feel like I am a person, not someone's tool, not someone's accessory, not someone's medal of achievement, not someone's prescription for relieving worries. Just an ordinary person who can use an abacus, write policy essays, and splash water in someone's face when unhappy. Here with you, every single thing I, Shi Yaosheng, do, the results are mine. His eyes softened. That kind of softness wasn't pity, nor was it doting, it was cherishing, just like how he hung name tags on 372 pots of flowers and plants. It wasn't possession, it was acknowledgement. Acknowledging that this is purple ribbon golden seal, that is golden silk drunken hibiscus, how much water to pour, what wind direction to avoid. Every pot has its own name and temper. Si Yaosheng. He lifted my hand to his lips and lightly touched my fingertips. His lips were dry. The touch was very light, like a warm leaf falling on the knuckle, touching and immediately leaving. When he lowered his head, his eyelashes drooped down, casting a small fan-shaped shadow on his cheekbones. You always have been. You were in the Pei family too. It is just that no one in the Pei family acknowledged it. I pulled my hand back, my ears burning hot enough to fry an egg. I turned my face toward the carriage curtain, pretending to look at the street scene outside. Outside the window was Duke Avenue, the place where I stepped on his foot 3 years ago. Can you act a little normal? My voice was muffled, bouncing back from the curtain, sounding a bit blurry. He smiled exuberantly. I could see his reflection in the bronze mirror through the gap in the curtain. That bronze mirror was embedded in the side wall of the carriage, perfectly reflecting half of his face exuberant, his phoenix eyes curving into crescents, revealing those 2 not-so-obvious canine teeth when his lips moved. In 3 days you'll be my wife, I am happy. This prince's patience has waited 3 years for you, and there are only 3 days left. I can't act normal at all. Keep your voice down. Outside the carriage. The sunset dyed the whole street golden. The shops on both sides of Duke Avenue started closing one after another, and the shop assistants put up the doorboards one by one, the clashing sounds of the wooden boards, especially clear in the quiet evening. The shadows on the street were stretched long and slanted. Some people were carrying loads on shoulder poles, packing up their stalls to go home, and some kids were chasing after paper windmills. The wind blew the carriage curtain, and between its opening and closing, golden light flickered inside the carriage. I leaned against the carriage wall, looking at the carefree smiling face across from me, the stone that had been blocking my heart for 3 years completely shattered. It didn't just crack into a few movable little stones. It crumbled into sand and washed away with my blood, leaving no trace behind. On the day of the grand wedding, Prince Jing's manor was decked out with lanterns and decorations, with red silk laid all the way from the manor gates straight to the main hall. It stretched for a full 100 jang, and word was the fabric was urgently dispatched from the Jiangnan Weaving Bureau. Yin Heng said the extravagance couldn't be any less than when the Pei family married me back then. Half the people in the capital city showed up, not because Prince Jing has a lot of clout. Okay, fine, also because he has a lot of clout, but mainly because everyone wanted to see exactly what kind of woman gets divorced by her ex-husband in the royal court, only to be snatched away by Prince Jing right after. The betting pools in the local tea houses had already opened new bets. It wasn't about whether Prince Jing would marry her or not, but whether there would be any hiccups at Prince Jing's wedding. 90% bet on no. And only little Abacus from the gambling house across the street secretly placed a bet that Pei Yanzhou might lose his mind again. I sat in the bridal chamber, balancing a 10-pound phoenix coronet on my head, and my neck was about to snap. This phoenix coronet had way more southern pearls and jade inlaid in it than the one I wore at the Pei family back in the day, and the golden phoenix on top held a pigeon blood ruby in its open beak. I heard this coronet wasn't the work of the embroiderers in Prince Jing's mansion, but was something Yin Heng dug out from the burial goods of some unknown prince's estate. He thought the embroiderer's work was too ordinary, saying, "It is not good enough for my wife." Heavy as the coronet was, every single pearl was set perfectly, and the curve of the phoenix tail was smooth and elegant. It really was better than the Pei family's. The me in the bronze mirror was thinner than 3 years ago, but my eyes were brighter than 3 years ago. It was super noisy outside, with the laughter of guests, shouts of toasting, and the sound of firecrackers all mixed together. The firecrackers were exceptionally loud. Someone said Yin Heng bought a whole 200 strings of them, and they'd been setting them off since morning without finishing them yet. Through the cracks in the window lattice, I saw the courtyard was packed with people. Some I recognized colleagues from the Hanlin Academy, old fogies from the censorate, but most I didn't know. Military officers, imperial merchants, distant relatives popping up out of nowhere, and a few completely white-haired old men who were said to be Yin Heng's old subordinates from the northern frontier, traveling thousands of miles to drink at his wedding. Yin Heng's popularity was way better than the rumors said. A maid trotted in, her face bright red. "Princess consort, His Highness is here." The door was pushed open. Yin Heng wore a bright red wedding robe, his hair tied up with a golden crown and a white jade pendant at his waist. He usually wore black, cold and aloof, which paired with his lazy demeanor made him look like a blade wrapped in cotton. Today, this red outfit looked as if he had wrapped the sunset glow of the entire sky around himself on the bright red silk fabric. A 4-clawed walking dragon was embroidered in gold thread. The dragon's body coiled down from his left shoulder, crossed his chest all the way to his right waist, with its head raised and its mouth holding a fiery pearl landing right over his heart. He walked up to me, bent down, and lifted a corner of my bridal veil. Those phoenix eyes peered in from the edge of the veil, meeting my gaze. He looked at me seriously for 2 breaths, not at the wedding dress, not at the phoenix coronet, but at my eyes. "Looks good," he said. 2 words spoken as if he were marking a case file in red ink, brief, precise, without any embellishment. "You haven't finished lifting it yet. Lifting a corner is enough." He let the veil drop and stood up straight. "I'll look at the rest after the guests leave. If I see too much now, there won't be any surprises later." I rolled my eyes under the veil. He let out a laugh and turned around to go entertain the guests. As he turned, the corner of his robe brushed across my knees. The bright red satin flashed a gleam of gold in the candlelight, and the tail of that 4-clawed walking dragon slid across the hem of my skirt like a ripple of golden water. The noise outside lasted for a long time. Glasses clinked, drinking games were shouted. Someone grabbed Yin Heng, insisting on pouring 3 cups down his throat. Someone cheered to tease the newlyweds in the bridal chamber. Someone shouted, "Prince Jing is so lucky." And someone else pulled a suona from who knows where and started blowing it. What he blew wasn't a wedding tune, but actually the charge bugle call of the Northern Frontier Army. I heard it was an old subordinate of Yin Heng's from his time in the army who had too much to drink. Someone shoved a suona at him, and told him to play something festive, and in his drunken stupor he blew the charge call. Yin Heng threw an empty wine cup at him from several tables away, laughingly cursing at him to get the hell out. The whole place burst into laughter. Then an untimely voice rang out. That voice wasn't loud, but highly recognizable, deep, slightly hoarse, like sandpaper gently rubbing across a wooden board. Your Highness Prince Jing, your subordinate Pei Yanzhou has come specially to offer congratulations. The maids in the bridal chamber all looked at me in unison. I felt their gazes land on my wedding veil, on my shoulders, on my hands, waiting to see how I would react. I sat there and didn't move. It got quiet outside for a moment. It was a very short silence, so short that an average person wouldn't notice. Then Yin Heng's voice rang out, carrying a smile. Lord Pei is here. A rare guest. Someone. Add a seat for Lord Pei and pour him some wine. He paused. Pour the strongest one. Lord Pei came from afar. We can't let him drink poorly. Thank you, Your Highness. Pei Yanzhou's voice was calm, showing no emotional fluctuation, like a stone with its edges ground, smooth rolling on a flat surface, muffled and without echo. I could imagine his expression at this moment, probably that ashen-faced look while stubbornly maintaining his decency. What he was best at during these years in the Pei family was maintaining decency. Your Highness and she. He paused, the name stuck in his throat, hoarse for a moment before finally changing his words. And the princess consort are a match made in heaven. This humble official toasts Your Highness a cup, wishing Your Highness and the princess consort a harmonious union for 100 years and to grow old together. I heard the faint clinking of wine cups, porcelain touching porcelain, a farding sound, very light but exceptionally crisp in the suddenly quiet main hall. There was something indescribable in that sound, like someone dropping a stone into a deep well, waiting a very, very long time before hearing the echo of the splash. Lord Pei is too polite. Yin Heng's voice was lazy. He could say the most serious things with the most unserious tone, and could say the most unserious things in a way that left people unable to refute. By the way, I have something I want to ask Lord Pei. Been wanting to ask for a while. Please speak, Your Highness. Pei Yanzhou's voice was abnormally calm. Back then in the court, when you yielded your merits to ask for Lady Shen's hand in marriage, did you ever think of this scene today? Dead silence. Complete and utter dead silence. The hall full of guests was dead silent. Even the old soldier who blew the bugle put down his suona. It seemed the clashing sounds of woks in the kitchen had stopped too. I was in the bridal chamber, gripping the handkerchief tightly in my palm. Yin Heng gave me that handkerchief before the wedding, not for me to wipe away tears, but to hold on to just in case I got nervous. He even thought of that. Yin Heng continued, his tone casual, as if chatting with an old friend. I am not trying to break your heart on purpose. Just purely curious, you pushed away the bright pearl with your own hands and gave her to someone else. Now watching someone else pick her up. How does it feel? There was a very, very long silence. Then Pei Yanzhou's voice sounded hoarse, deep, as if using the last bit of strength in his body to force every word out of his chest. The voice wasn't loud, but it was crystal clear, heard by everyone present, like a fishbone stuck in my throat. Just a few words. No excuses, no resentment, no begging. Just those words. Like he personally drank a glass of highly concentrated strong liquor, burning his internal organs in pain, but he swallowed it and accepted it. Yeah, Yin Heng said. There was no schadenfreude in his tone, no kicking him when he was down, just a very faint, superficial perfunctory comfort, then drink a couple more cups to wash it down. A burst of roaring laughter erupted outside. The laughter was louder than any time before. Some were slapping tables, some stomping feet, some laughing to tears, and others laughing so hard they slapped their neighbor's shoulder. Taking advantage of the chaos, the old veteran playing the suona blew another charge call, and this time Yin Heng didn't scold him. I heard Pei Yanzhou's footsteps hurrying away. He walked across the courtyard, his footsteps chaotic, unlike before when he came to Prince Jing's manor still holding on to a bit of dignity. This time it was genuine panic. He probably tripped over the threshold again. A low curse came from outside in his own voice, followed by the muffled thud of the wooden door being pushed open and shut. He was gone, Not long after, Yin Heng pushed the door open and came in. There was a faint flush on his face, spreading from his cheekbones to the base of his ears, and his black irises were slightly moist. He had clearly drank a lot, still holding a wine cup with a trace of clear liquor left at the bottom. But his eyes were clear, his steps steady without a hint of staggering. Drinking never went to his head, his face only got red because of his fast metabolism hurt him. He walked up to me, put the wine cup on the table, and crouched down. He crouched in front of my knees, looking up at me, his bright red wedding robe dragging on the floor. Those phoenix eyes looked up from below, the angle different, but the look in them the same as always, a flickering candle flame reflected in his amber irises. Yeah, mad, think I shouldn't have taken a jab at him in public. I thought about it, really thought about it. I thought about his earlier remark, like a fishbone in the throat, and then his next remark, then drink a couple more cups to wash it down. The first sentence was a knife, the next was a sheath. The knife was drawn fast and sheathed just as fast. I am not mad, really, I paused, and my hand gripping the handkerchief under the bridal veil loosened. But you don't have to step on him for my sake. He is already miserable enough. Demoted to the secondary 6th rank. From now on, he'll probably just be stuck copying old records in a corner of the Hanlon Academy, never to appear at the front of the royal court again. Yin Heng tilted his head to look at me, suddenly reached out and pulled off the veil. The bright red veil fell to the floor. The breeze it stirred, making the candle flame flicker sharply. The candlelight flickered across his face, dividing it into halves of light and dark, one half bathed in a warm gold by the candle, the other half hidden in shadow, those upward slanting phoenix eyes half amber and half dark brown. Xiaosheng, he said, his voice very low as if meant only for me to hear. I didn't do it to step on him. I did it to make him give up. He has to give up. If he doesn't, he'll keep pestering you. Yesterday he knelt before you saying he'd work like a horse or ox for you. Tomorrow he'll kneel outside the prince's manor to say sorry, and the day after he might block your carriage leaving the manor to explain himself to you. I can't beat him up, I can't curse him away, so I could only make him say it himself like a fishbone in the throat. He said those words himself, and he needs to swallow them. I looked at him, looked at his red earlobes, and then at his bright pupils. So you humiliated him in public to protect me, to make him pronounce his own sentence, right? He sounded entirely justified, reaching out to take the phoenix coronet off my head. His movements were very light, his fingers unfastened, the clips holding the coronet, steadily supporting the entire heavy gold crown in his palm, and placed it on the table. Before setting it down, he even tested the temperature of the tabletop with the back of his hand, afraid the freezing table would chip the pearls. The truth he swallows himself is more effective than the truth forced down his throat by others. He won't show up in front of you ever again. I rubbed my sore neck. My spine made 2 cracking sounds. Hearing that noise, he frowned, then reached out his fingers, stopping in the air half an inch from the back of my neck, not landing. Does it hurt here? He asked. I said I was fine. The coronet was just too heavy. Your way of protecting people is pretty special, as long as it works. He placed the phoenix coronet at the innermost corner of the dressing table and covered it well with a piece of soft satin. Then he turned to look at me, his gaze sweeping over me from top to bottom. The candlelight hit his face perfectly. That face looked even fairer set against the red robe, with sword-like eyebrows slanting into his temples, and a high, straight nose, beautiful. He said it again. This time I didn't hide away. You look good too. He froze for a second. That stunned look wasn't faked. His eyes widened slightly, and the candlelight in his pupils flickered. Then he smiled. It wasn't his usual lazy smile, nor the polite smile he had just used to deal with guests at the banquet. It was a real, heartfelt smile with stars in his eyes. The corners of his mouth turned up, the corners of his eyes crinkled down, and those 2 subtle canine teeth showed. He covered his mouth with the back of his hand for a second, but couldn't hide it. Xiaosheng, he held out his hand, palm up. That hand looked even cleaner than usual in the candlelight. The palm lines clear, the lifeline very long, the headline branching out and extending to the wrist. This was the mark of his talent for mathematics. For the rest of our lives, please take care of me. I looked at his hand, slender with distinct knuckles and thin calluses on the palm. That hand had handed me grapes, handed me tea, taken my pulse, and wiped away my tears. I put my hand on his yin heng for the rest of our lives. Don't let me down. He gripped my hand tightly, gave a hard pull, and yanked me up from the chair. I bumped into his arms. His chin rested on the top of my head, his chest vibrating. Through the bright red wedding robe, I could feel the heartbeat in his chest, a steady rhythm, about 65 beats a minute. He had a faint smell of alcohol on him. Not stinky, but a warm, grainy aroma mixed with pine scent. It won't. Outside the window, fireworks exploded. The first one was red, the second was gold, and the third was a peony shape of mixed gold and red. People were cheering outside. Someone was shouting, "Long live Prince Jing." And that drunk old veteran probably blew the sonneur like a charge horn again. Flowing light spilled down from the sky, dyeing all 372 pots of flowers in the courtyard into rainbow colors. That pot of purple ribbon and golden seal hung at the door of the main hall. A piece of firework ash fell on its petals. It trembled in the wind and then stayed steadily blooming there. I leaned in Yin Heng's arms. His chin rubbed against the top of my head. His breath passed through my hair, and his heartbeat vibrated beat by beat through the bright red wedding robe. "Yin Heng, do you still have that silk flower?" He didn't answer. He just reached into his chest pocket, took something out, and placed it in the palm of my hand. It was pale yellow with frayed edges. The color faded to off-white. A crooked rabbit was embroidered on it. The stitches so immature they looked like the handiwork of a 5-year-old girl. "It is here," he said. I clenched the old silk flower in my palm tightly and closed my eyes. Outside, fireworks exploded one after another. The whole capital city heard it. After Pei Yanzhou's fishbone in the throat was spoken, the psychological game part of this story is over. The remaining wedding, fireworks, and old silk flower are not plot advancements, but value confirmation rituals, regarding why the female lead must go through this process of being divorced, being snatched away, most marrying better after being divorced. Stories on the market will have the new husband directly crush the ex-husband, more powerful, richer, more affectionate. But the interesting thing about Yin Heng's setting is that he isn't a stronger man than Pei Yanzhou. He is a more accurate man than Pei Yanzhou. Pei Yanzhou treats Xiao Sheng as a tool, while Yin Heng treats her as a human being. This isn't a moral gap, it is a cognitive gap. And this is exactly what Xiao Sheng needs most, not better conditions, but a more accurate valuation. Her 3 years in the Pei family were not about being abused, but being undervalued. The pain of being undervalued is more hidden than being abused because it won't leave wounds, but it makes you slowly believe you really are only worth that little. So the most crucial sentence Yin Heng said to her wasn't, "I waited 3 years for you, but you were also a person before in the Pei family. It is just that no one recognized it in the Pei family." He wasn't endowing her with value. He was confirming the value she inherently had. The core structure I used for this story is called conflict of dual valuation systems. Pei Yanzhou represents one valuation system. A woman's value is determined by how many functional services she can provide for a man, managing the household, keeping accounts, writing policy essays, but without being allowed to put her name on them. Yin Heng represents the other valuation system. A woman's value is the sum of her own intelligence, personality, and choices, and doesn't need to be transferred to a man's name to circulate. The two lines converge on the same woman, creating a natural dramatic tension. The satisfaction readers get doesn't come from the scumbag getting slapped in the face that is too basic, but from the entire process of the female lead's pricing power shifting from System A to System B. Every time Madame Shen comes to put on an act, Pei Yanzhou comes to pester her, or Yin Heng says let her choose for herself. It reinforces this line of shifting pricing power. A final sentence of value judgment. The stories on the market about marrying better are mostly about changing men. Peeling grapes changes the valuation system. Changing men is like changing clothes. Changing the valuation system is like changing markets. From delisting in the old market to listing in the new market. The female lead never changed from start to finish. What changed is who can accurately recognize how much she is worth. See you in the next part.